Now, prepare to drift. I will weave the astronomical precision of our solar system with the deepest, most hypnotic, rhythmic language to guide you into sleep. The day is done. The heavy doors of the waking world are slowly closing, latching shut with a soft, satisfying click that echoes gently in the corridors of your mind. There is nothing left to solve. There are no questions that need answering, no messages that need sending, and no burdens that you need to carry across the threshold of this night. You're safe here, cocooned in a sanctuary of shadows and soft, breathable silence. Allow your body to sink. Feel the mattress rising up to meet you, holding you, supporting every vertebra of your spine, every muscle in your legs, every heavy thought in your head. It is time to turn your gaze away from the bright, demanding lights of Earth and toward the vast, velvety theatre of the cosmos. Imagine, if you will, that the ceiling above you dissolves. It does not break or shatter. It simply fades like mist in the morning sun, revealing the infinite, deepening indigo of the night sky. The air around you is cool and still, smelling faintly of stardust and ancient, quiet places. You're weightless now. You're not just observing the universe, you're floating within it, a silent voyager drifting on a river of dark matter, perfectly at ease. The stars are not sharp or piercing, they are soft, glowing embers, pulsating with a slow, rhythmic light that matches the deepening cadence of your own breath. In breathe the darkness, out breathe the light. In breathe the silence, out breathe the noise. As we embark on this journey, we will drift from one celestial body to another, exploring the silent sentinels that watch over the planets. We call them moons, and they are waiting for you, suspended in the amber of space, massive and serene, telling stories that are billions of years old in a language of silence and stone. Let the current of the cosmos take you now, drifting slowly, deeper and deeper into the dream. We begin our voyage by simply acknowledging the sheer, silent multitude of these natural satellites. When you look up from the surface of the Earth, you see only one solitary companion, but out here, in the deep velvet expanse of the solar system, there are hundreds. Picture them not as data points, but as a vast, suspended family of the worlds, each one distinct, each one a silent sculpture carved by gravity and time. They are the quiet children of the planets, caught in an eternal dance of loyalty. Visualize the darkness of space, stretching out forever, and scattered within it are these spheres, some as large as planets themselves, others merely jagged fragments of rock no bigger than a city. They do not strive, they do not rush, they simply exist in a state of perfect orbital surrender. To understand a moon is to understand the concept of belonging. They are held by an invisible tether, a gravitational embrace that keeps them from wandering into the void, yet keeps them from crashing into their parent. It is a perfect balance, a suspended tension that has lasted for eons. Feel that sense of balance within yourself now, the feeling of being held in place, exactly where you're meant to be, orbiting the centre of your own rest, neither pulling away nor falling in, just drifting in a perfect circle of calm. From this general sense of the multitude, we allow our focus to narrow, drifting closer to home, gliding through the blackness until the familiar cratered face of our own moon fills your vision. It hangs there, a pearl in a sea of ink. Consider the light that reflects off its surface. It is a soft, cool luminescence that has bathed the Earth for billions of nights. But there is a secret in that light, a pause that belongs to time itself. When you look at the moon, you are looking into the past. It takes the light exactly 1.3 seconds to travel from the lunar surface to your retina. Visualize that beam of light, a silent silver messenger, leaving the grey dust of a crater, travelling through the absolute vacuum, rushing past satellites and space debris, piercing the atmosphere, and finally landing softly in your eyes. For 1.3 seconds, that light is lonely, travelling across the void. It creates a delay, a tiny breathing gap between the reality of the rock and your perception of it. This delay is a cushion, a reminder that everything in the universe happens at its own pace, a pace that cannot be hurried. Let your mind rest in that gap, that 1.3 second silence. It is a bridge of light connecting you to something ancient, a silver thread that sews the chaotic energy of the Earth to the stillness of space. As you float near this silver orb, you might notice something peculiar about the way it watches the Earth. It never turns away. This is a phenomenon known as tidal locking, a gravitational synchrony that feels like a vow of eternal attention. Imagine two dancers spinning in a grand ballroom, holding hands so tightly that they always face each other, spinning and spinning until their gazes are locked. Over millions of years, the Earth's gravity has slowed the Moon's rotation until it matches its orbit perfectly. It rotates exactly once on its axis for every one time it circles the Earth. The result is that we only ever see one face. The man in the moon, the dark basaltic plains, the bright highlands, they are always there, a constant, unchanging portrait. The far side, often called the dark side, remains forever hidden from our direct view, turned towards the deep, mysterious expanse of the rest of the universe. There is a profound comfort in this constancy. In a life filled with changing variables and shifting landscapes, the moon offers you a steady, unblinking gaze. It is a celestial promise of stability. Feel that stability anchoring you now. Like the moon is locked to the Earth, let your mind lock onto the sensation of heavy, deep relaxation. You do not need to turn or shift. You can simply be, facing the darkness, held in place by the gentle gravity of sleep. Drifting deeper into the history of this silent companion, we travel back through the corridors of time, peeling away the layers of grey dust to reveal a violent, fiery birth that has long since cooled into peace. It is widely believed that our moon was born from a collision, a cataclysmic meeting between the young molten Earth and a Mars-sized wanderer named Theia. Visualize this not as a disaster, but as a cosmic merging. Two bodies colliding, shattering and splashing molten rock out into the void. For a time, the Earth had a ring of fire, a glowing halo of debris that slowly, over millennia, coalesced into the sphere we see today. It is a testament to the fact that chaos eventually settles into calm. What was once a burning, chaotic ring of magma is now the quietest place we know. The fires have gone out. The lava has crystallized into cold, hard stone. The heat has radiated away into the endless night. It serves as a reminder to your own mind that no matter how turbulent the day has been, no matter how fiery the thoughts or how chaotic the emotions, everything eventually cools, everything settles. The dust coalesces into a solid, serene whole. You're in the cooling phase now. The heat of the day is dissipating, radiating off your skin, leaving you cool, solid and whole, orbiting in the peaceful aftermath of existence. We drift away from the scientific history now, moving softly into the realm of the imagination, seeing the moon not as rock, but as a canvas for the dreaming mind. Across the ages, humans have looked up at those dark patches, the Maria, or seas of frozen lava, and seen shapes. This is the gentle work of pareidolia, the mind's desire to find friends in the void. Where you might see a face, a kindly watcher with wide eyes and a round mouth, others have seen different guardians. Drift across the Pacific in your mind's eye to Asia, where the shadows form a rabbit, pounding a pestle, making an elixir of immortality. Float to other ancient cultures who saw a toad or a pair of hands. The moon accepts all these projections without judgment. It is a mirror for our collective subconscious, holding our stories while we sleep. Picture the moon rabbit now, soft and white, sitting quietly on the horizon of the lunar surface, bathed in earthshine. It is a cozy image, a soft, furry presence in the harsh vacuum. It reminds us that even in the coldest, emptiest places, we bring our own warmth, our own stories, and our own softness. Let your mind trace the outline of these shapes on the ceiling of your mind, connecting the dots, finding the familiar in the foreign, feeling the ancient comfort of knowing that millions of ancestors have looked up and seen the same friendly shapes watching over their slumber. We release the Earth and its silver guardian now, pushing off gently to float deeper into the darkness towards the rusty red glow of Mars. Here, the context of a moon changes entirely. We do not find a large, round, majestic sphere, but rather two small, lumpy travellers named Phobos and Deimos. They're named after fear and panic, but here, in the silence of space, they are anything but scary. They are like small, misshapen potatoes, captured asteroids that wandered too close to the red planet and were invited to stay. Visualize Phobos, the larger of the two, though still tiny compared to our moon. It is heavily cratered, scarred with grooves, rushing through the Martian sky with incredible speed. It orbits so fast that if you were standing on the dusty red plains of Mars, you would see it rise in the west and set in the east twice in a single day. It is a hurried little world rushing through its cycle, while Deimos, smaller and smoother, drifts lazily in the distance, more like a bright star than a moon. These two remind us that there is no correct way to be. You do not have to be round or perfect or slow to belong. You can be small, lumpy and scarred and still have your place in the gravity of the universe. Watch them tumble silently in the dark, tumbling over and over, catching the weak sunlight, playing a game of tag with the red planet below. Leaving the inner rocky worlds behind, we engage a silent thruster of imagination and glide across the vast asteroid belt, entering the kingdom of the giants. We arrive at Jupiter. Here the moons are not just rocks, they are worlds of immense power and variety. We drift first toward Io. In the darkness of space, Io glows with a shocking, vibrant beauty. It is not grey or white, but a mottled canvas of pizza yellow, sulphur orange, and rusty red. It is the most volcanically active body in the solar system. Imagine the surface, where plumes of sulphur rise hundreds of kilometres into the black sky, freezing instantly into colourful snow that falls back down in slow motion. It is a world turned inside out by the immense gravity of Jupiter, which squeezes and pulls at Io like a stress ball generating heat from the inside. Yet, from our vantage point, floating safely in the vacuum, it is silent. We see the plumes rise and fall in a majestic slow ballet. The colours are warm, but the space is cold. It is a stunning contrast, the violence of the volcanoes rendered peaceful by distance. Let the yellows and oranges fill your mind, warm and vibrant, pulsating gently. It is the heartbeat of the Jovian system, a warm ember burning in the deep freeze, reminding you that there is always a source of warmth, even in the deepest distances of the night. Just a whisper away from the fiery Io, we drift over a world of pure crystal ice. This is Europa. It is the smoothest object in the solar system, a billiard ball of white ice crisscrossed with long, reddish-brown fractures that look like veins on a marble statue. It reflects the sunlight with a dazzling brilliance. But the true magic of Europa lies not on its surface, but beneath it. Close your eyes and imagine diving down, through the vacuum, landing on the crunching hard ice. Now, imagine dissolving through that crust, down, 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 kilometres deep, until you break through into a hidden pitch-black ocean. There is more water here than on all of Earth combined. It is a secret, warm, salty sea, wrapped in a blanket of ice, protected from the radiation of space. In that crushing dark, the water moves in slow, heavy currents. It is the ultimate sanctuary, a hidden depth that no eye has ever seen, a place of potential and mystery. Feel that depth within yourself, beneath the surface of your skin, beneath the busy thoughts of your mind. There is a deep, silent ocean of consciousness that is always calm, always protected, always waiting. Let yourself sink into your own internal Europa, drifting in the warm, salty suspension of your deepest self. Pulling up from the depths of Europa, we ascend to behold the king of moons, Ganymede. It is a colossus, the largest moon in the entire solar system, so massive that it is larger than the planet Mercury. If it were orbiting the Sun on its own, it would be a planet, but it humbly bows to Jupiter's gravity. Ganymede is a world of duality. As we glide over its surface, we see two distinct terrains, darker, ancient regions that are heavily cratered and billions of years old, and lighter, younger regions sliced up by grooves and ridges. It is a patchwork quilt of ice and rock. Ganymede is unique for another reason. It sings its own magnetic song. It is the only moon known to have its own magnetic field, a shimmering, invisible bubble that protects it. Imagine this invisible shield surrounding the giant moon, deflecting the energetic particles of Jupiter, creating a small, safe pocket in the radiation storm. Visualize a similar shield around your own bed, a magnetic field of safety that deflects worry, deflects noise, deflects the demands of the world. Nothing can touch you here. You're as grand and established as Ganymede, floating in your own protected sphere, massive and calm, the master of your own gravity. Finally, in this first stream of giants, we drift to the outermost of the Galilean moons, the ancient and battered Callisto. Callisto is the most heavily cratered object in the solar system. Its surface is a record keeper, a history book written in impacts. Every asteroid, every comet, every stray rock that has hit it over the last 4 billion years has left a mark, and Callisto has kept them all. It does not erase its past with volcanoes like Io, or shift its surface with ice plates like Europa. It simply bears witness. As you float above it, looking down at the sparkling fields of ice and dark rock, you see ring after ring of impact basins, some bright white where fresh ice has been exposed, others dark and dusty. It is a beautiful mosaic of survival. There is a deep peace in Callisto's stillness. It is a world that has stopped changing, a world that has accepted its history completely. It is geologically dead, yet stunningly beautiful in its preservation. It teaches us the grace of acceptance, to accept every bump, every scar, every moment of the past as part of the beautiful, complex texture of who we are. There is no need to smooth it over. The texture is the beauty. Let your mind run its fingers over the cratered surface, feeling the roughness, the age, the permanence of it, and find rest in the idea that you, too, can simply be a witness to time, silent and enduring in the outer reaches of the night. From the battered ancient face of Jupiter's final outpost, we turn our gaze outward, pushing off into the deepest, quietest stretch of void we have encountered so far. The journey to the Lord of the Rings is long, a silent glide through millions of kilometers of absolute nothingness. Here, the sun is merely a piercingly bright star, shrinking in the distance, its warmth fading to a memory. You are floating in the great expanse between giants. The darkness here is not empty. It is a heavy, comforting blanket that wraps around your mind, dampening the noise, slowing the pulse. Feel the scale of this distance. It is a breath held for an eternity. And then, slowly, majestically, it emerges from the gloom. Saturn, a pale gold jewel suspended in the ink, surrounded by the most spectacular halo in the cosmos. The rings are not solid, but rivers of ice and dust, flowing in perfect, silent unison. And amidst this glittering debris, peering through the golden haze, we find a world that is shrouded in mystery, a moon that hides its face behind a thick orange veil. This is Titan. Titan is a moon that dreams of being a planet. It is the only moon in the solar system with a substantial atmosphere, a thick, hazy envelope of nitrogen that is denser than the air on Earth. Imagine descending into that atmosphere now. As you sink into the orange mist, the blackness of space fades away, replaced by a soft, diffused tangerine glow. It is like being inside a perpetual sunset. The light here is dim and amber, casting long, soft shadows that stretch out over the alien landscape. The pressure is comfortable, a heavy, reassuring embrace, like being tucked under a weighted blanket on a cold winter night. There is no hard vacuum here, only the gentle, swirling winds of the upper atmosphere, whispering secrets in a language of chemistry and cold. It feels safe, enclosed, a world wrapped in layers of protective smog that filter out the harshness of the universe, leaving only a twilight calm. Let your mind breathe in this scene, the amber light, the suspended haze, the feeling of being completely surrounded by a soft, thick air that holds you, supports you, and keeps the cold at bay. Beneath this thick blanket of orange cloud lies a landscape that is both eerily familiar and utterly alien. Titan is the only other world we know of that has liquid on its surface. But this is not water. It is liquid methane and ethane, pooling in vast, silent lakes near the poles. Imagine drifting over the shores of Ligeia Mare. The surface of the lake is incredibly smooth, eerily still, like black glass mirroring the orange sky. Because of the low gravity and weak wind, the waves are slow and lazy, rippling in slow motion towards the shoreline. Picture it, a dark hydrocarbon sea stretching out to the horizon, lapping gently against cliffs of water ice that is as hard as granite. And then the rain begins. It is not the frantic, splashing rain of Earth. The drops of methane are large, slow, and float down through the thick air like falling leaves or soft feathers. They land with a silent grace. Watch the slow-motion rain falling on the dark mirror of the lake, creating expanding circles of ripples that overlap and fade into the stillness. It is a landscape of liquid silence, a cold, dark paradise where the rhythm of nature is slowed down to a hypnotic crawl. Allow your thoughts to become like that slow rain, drifting down gently, settling into the deep, dark pool of your subconscious. Deep within this silent orange world, there is a sense of waiting. Titan is a prebiotic laboratory, a freezer preserving the chemical building blocks of life. It is a world frozen in a moment of potential. Scientists look at Titan and see the Earth as it might have been billions of years ago before life took hold. It is a time capsule. There is a profound relaxation in this concept, the idea of potential that does not need to be realized yet. It is just sitting there, waiting. In the coming years, we will send a rotorcraft called Dragonfly to hop across these dunes and craters, listening to the wind, tasting the air. But for now, Titan waits in solitude. It does not rush to evolve. It does not rush to become anything other than what it is, a cold, hazy mystery. Feel that permission to simply wait. You do not need to progress tonight. You do not need to evolve or improve or solve. You can simply exist in the potential, in the quiet, amber waiting room of sleep, perfectly content to leave the next chapter for another time. The dragonfly will come eventually, but for now, there is only the wind and the dunes of dark ice sand shifting slowly, grain by grain, in the low gravity. We rise up through the tangerine haze, breaking the surface of Titan's atmosphere, and emerge back into the crystal clarity of Saturn's orbit. We drift inward now, toward the rings, and encounter a startling contrast. Where Titan was orange and hazy, this next world is a blinding, brilliant white. This is Enceladus. It is a small moon, a glistening pearl, the most reflective object in the solar system. It is covered in fresh, clean ice that reflects almost 100% of the sunlight that hits it. In your mind's eye, see it shining against the black backdrop, brighter than fresh snow on a sunny morning. But the true wonder of Enceladus lies at its south pole. Here, 4 long, parallel fractures scratch the surface, known as the tiger stripes. They are warm, relatively speaking, and from them, majestic geysers of water vapor and ice particles shoot miles into space. Visualize these fountains of fine mist, erupting silently into the vacuum, backlit by the distant sun. They are like cosmic humidifiers, spraying a fine, glittering perfume of ice into the void. It is a continuous, gentle release of pressure. Imagine the relief of that release. like a sigh escaping from the deep interior of the moon, letting go of what it holds, sending it out to become part of something larger. This spray from Enceladus does not just disappear, it creates beauty. The ice crystals that escape the moon's weak gravity drift out to form Saturn's E-ring. Enceladus is a moon that creates its own environment, painting a ring of soft, diffuse ice around its parent planet. As you float through this tenuous ring, imagine the microscopic crystals brushing against your skin, cool and tingling. But looking deeper, we realize these plumes are messengers from a hidden world. Underneath that hard, frozen shell, Enceladus hides a global ocean of liquid, salty water. It is warmed by the friction of Saturn's gravity, kept liquid in the freezing depths of space. Just like Europa, it holds a secret sanctuary. But Enceladus is generous. It shares its secret, spraying samples of its hidden ocean out into the cosmos for us to see. It is a reminder that even the coldest, hardest exteriors can hide a warm, fluid heart, and sometimes that inner warmth bubbles up and breaks the surface, creating something beautiful. Feel the warmth in your own chest, a gentle heat radiating outward, relaxing the muscles around your ribs, melting the tension, allowing your breath to flow as freely and rhythmically as the geysers of Enceladus. Leaving the mist of the geysers behind, we drift further inward to a moon that evokes a different kind of feeling, a feeling of stillness after impact. This is Mimas. It is a small grey world, heavily cratered, but it is dominated by one single colossal feature, the Herschel crater. It is a massive impact basin that spans a third of the moon's diameter, giving it the appearance of a great unblinking eye, or a certain famous space station from cinema. But here, there is no menace, only silence. The impact that created this crater nearly shattered the moon apart billions of years ago. Shockwaves rippled through its icy body, fracturing the opposite side. But Mimas survived. It held together. Now, the crater is just a silent valley, a bowl of shadow and light. Visualize standing in the center of that crater. The walls rise up miles high around you, towering mountains of ice that block out the stars. It is the ultimate shelter. The violence of the impact is long gone, replaced by a deep geological peace. It is a scar that has become a sanctuary. It reminds us that we can endure great shocks, great impacts, and remain whole. We can carry the marks of our history and still orbit with grace. Rest in the bowl of the Herschel crater, sheltered by the high walls, protected from the solar wind, in the deepest shadow of the crater floor. As we continue our tour of this crowded system, we encounter a moon of stark duality, a world that cannot decide between the darkness and the light. This is Iapetus. As it spins slowly in the dark, one hemisphere appears as black as charcoal, while the other is as white as snow. It is the yin and yang of the solar system. The dark side is coated in reddish-black dust, sweeping it up as it orbits, while the bright side remains pristine ice. Running precisely along the equator of this two-toned world is a massive ridge, a chain of mountains miles high that circles the entire moon, making it look like a giant walnut suspended in space. The ridge is ancient and steep, casting long, sharp shadows across the dark terrain. There is a hypnotic rhythm to its rotation. Dark, light, dark, light. It balances the opposites perfectly. It does not try to mix them. It allows them to exist side by side. Consider the parts of yourself that are light and the parts that are shadow. The active mind and the sleepy body, the day self and the night self. Iapetus teaches us that you do not need to be one thing. You can be both. You can be the contrast. You can hold the darkness of sleep on one side and the brightness of dreams on the other, spinning slowly, held together by the gravity of your own being. Drifting further out into the chaotic regions, we find a moon that refuses to conform to any shape of spheres or circles. This is Hyperion. It is a sponge-like world, irregular and lumpy, tumbling chaotically through space. Unlike the other moons that keep one face towards Saturn, Hyperion tumbles unpredictably. It has no North Pole, no South Pole that stays put. It rolls and turns, a free spirit in the gravity well. Its surface is deeply pitted, looking exactly like a porous sea sponge or a piece of coral, full of deep, dark holes that absorb the light. It is a low-density world, so light and airy that if you could find a bathtub big enough it might float. Because it is so porous, impacts don't shatter it. They just compress it, like punching a pillow. Visualize this soft, tumbling sponge drifting through the stars. It absorbs energy. It absorbs impact. It is soft. Feel your own body becoming like Hyperion, porous and soft. Imagine that any tension, any noise, any stress that hits you simply sinks into the softness and disappears. It is not reflected. It is absorbed and neutralized. You're tumbling gently, with no fixed direction, no up or down, just a soft sponge-like drifting in the current of the cosmos. Finally, we return to the majestic rings themselves, to the very edge of the Great Enki Gap, to find the tiny guardians of the dust. These are the shepherd moons, specifically Pan and Daphnis. They are small, shaped like ravioli or flying saucers, with ridges of accumulated dust gathered around their middles. They are not merely drifting, they are working. Their gravity keeps the rings in line. As they orbit within the gaps of the rings, they create wakes, rippling waves in the ring particles that look like the wake of a boat moving through calm water. Visualize Daphnis, a small speck of rock, cruising through a gap in the white, icy river of the rings. As it moves, gravity pulls the dust particles up and down, creating vertical waves that cast long, needle-like shadows across the rings. It is a silent sweeping. They are the caretakers of order, clearing the path, defining the edges, maintaining the structure of beauty. They remind us that even the smallest things have influence. A tiny thought of calm can organize the chaos of the mind. A small shepherd of breath can clear a gap in the noise of the day. Watch the ripples spread out from these tiny moons, organizing the dust, creating stripes of shadow and light, smoothing the edges of the rings into perfect concentric circles of silence. We float away from the orderly ripples of the shepherd moons, allowing the golden glow of Saturn to recede behind us, shrinking until it is just another bright star in the tapestry of the night. We turn our backs on the known giants and drift into the deep cyan mysteries of the ice worlds. The journey to the seventh planet, Uranus, is a voyage into a strange and quiet orientation. As we approach, you will notice that this entire system is asleep on its side. Unlike the other planets that spin like tops, Uranus rolls like a ball along its orbital path, its equator and its rings standing vertically against the blackness. This creates a sensation of surreal suspension, like a bullseye target hanging in the void. The moons here do not orbit the equator in a flat plane relative to the Sun. They circle the planet like the hands of a clock on a wall, ticking away the eons in a vertical dance. Imagine floating in the center of this mechanism. The sunlight here is incredibly weak, a pale, cold wash of illumination that is 370 times fainter than on Earth. It is a permanent twilight, a soft bluish gloom that never brightens into day. It is the perfect lighting for deep sleep. The shadows are long and soft, and the cold is absolute. Feel the stillness of this sideways world. It defies convention. It defies the up and down of the rest of the solar system. It suggests that there is no right way to rest, no correct posture for peace. You can lie on your side, you can curl up, you can drift at any angle you choose, and the gravity of the dream will still hold you safe. Drifting closer to the heart of this toppled kingdom, we find the strangest moon of all, a chaotic puzzle of ice and rock called Miranda. It is a small world, barely 500 kilometers across, yet it possesses a landscape so dramatic it defies logic. It looks as if it were broken apart and clumsily put back together by a giant's hand, a Frankenstein monster of geology. There are ridges, grooves, and cratered plains all jumbled together. But the crown jewel of Miranda is the Verona Rupes, the tallest cliff in the solar system. Visualize a sheer wall of ice rising 20 kilometers straight up into the black sky. That is over 10 times the depth of the Grand Canyon. Now, in the safety of your dream, imagine standing at the top of this precipice. Because gravity on Miranda is so incredibly low, less than 1% of Earth's, falling off this cliff would not be a terrifying plunge. It would be a slow, gentle drift. You would fall for over 12 minutes before reaching the bottom. Imagine stepping off the edge and simply floating down, lighter than a feather, watching the icy striations of the cliff face pass you by in slow motion. You are falling, but you're not rushing. You're simply descending layer by layer, deeper into relaxation, cushioned by the lack of weight, gliding softly toward the valley floor far, far below. Moving outward from the jumbled chaos of Miranda, we encounter the largest of the Uranian moons, the fairy queen Titania. Named after the Queen of the Fairies in Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, this moon is a world of dirty ice and long shadowing canyons. The surface is not the brilliant white of Enceladus. It is a darker, more muted grey, dusted with the soot of the cosmos. It feels ancient and weathered. Titania is scarred by a massive canyon system called the Messina Chasmata, a deep trench that cuts across the moon's equator. Unlike the rivers of Earth that carve valleys with water, these scars were likely formed by the expansion of the moon's interior as it froze, cracking the crust like the skin of a ripening fruit. Imagine floating through this silent chasm. The walls rise high on either side, blocking out the pale sun, creating a corridor of eternal shadow. It is a place of absolute shelter. The silence here is thick and heavy. There is no wind to whistle through the rocks, no water to rush over the stones. There is only the static crunch of billion-year-old ice settling. Let your mind retreat into this canyon, hiding away from the light, tucked deep into the crust of the moon, where the temperature never changes and the silence is never broken. Further still, we drift to the outer edge of the main Uranian family to find Oberon. It is the old king, the outermost of the large moons, standing guard at the perimeter. Oberon is dark, red-tinged and heavily cratered, showing the battle scars of a long life exposed to the impacts of space. But there is a peculiar beauty here. Many of the larger craters on Oberon have floors covered in a dark, mysterious material, perhaps carbon-rich dirty water, that welled up from below after the impact, and radiating out from some of these craters are bright rays of ejected ice, looking like splashes of white paint on a dark canvas. It is a study in contrast. Floating this far out, you are nearly 600,000 kilometers from Uranus. The planet appears smaller, a teal marble in the distance. The isolation here is profound. Oberon dwells in the quietest suburbs of the solar system. It is comfortable with being alone. It does not need the warmth of the inner system. It sits in the cold, watching the dark, content in its solitude. Allow yourself to feel that comfort of solitude, the feeling that you do not need to be near the center of action. You can be on the periphery, watching from a distance, wrapped in a cloak of dark red ice, perfectly at peace with the quiet. We leave the tilted system of Uranus now, propelling ourselves into the abyss once more, travelling further into the dark until we reach the blue giant Neptune. The journey is long, the sun becoming merely the brightest star in the sky, offering no heat, only a piercing diamond-hard light. Neptune is a world of deep azure blue, whipped by supersonic winds, but its primary moon, Triton, is a rebel. Triton is unique among the large moons of the solar system because it orbits in retrograde, the opposite direction to the planet's spin. It is like a lone swimmer moving upstream against a mighty river. This suggests that Triton was not born here. It was likely a wanderer from the deep Kuiper belt, a prince of the outer dark that was captured by Neptune's gravity eons ago. Visualize this capture. a slow, gravitational embrace that pulled the traveller in and turned it around. Because of this retrograde motion, Triton is slowly spiralling inward. It is a moon living on borrowed time, destined to one day shatter or crash. But that day is billions of years away. For now, it dances its backward waltz, a symbol of non-conformity. It reminds us that it is okay to move against the grain, to spin in your own direction, to be the one who walks the other way. Even in a system as powerful as Neptune's, there is room for the one who goes backwards. As we descend toward the surface of Triton, we find a landscape that is shockingly alien and beautiful. The surface is composed of frozen nitrogen, which gives it a slight pinkish hue, like the colour of a cantaloupe melon. In fact, geologists call a large section of Triton cantaloupe terrain because of its bumpy, pitted texture, resembling the skin of the fruit. But it is the cold that defines this world. Triton is one of the coldest objects in the solar system, with temperatures plummeting to minus 235 degrees Celsius. It is a deep freeze so profound that the air itself freezes and falls as snow. Yet even here, there is life in the geology. We see dark streaks across the pink ice. These are geysers, but not like the water geysers of Enceladus. These are eruptions of gaseous nitrogen, bursting through the ice and carrying dark dust up into the thin atmosphere. The winds of the upper atmosphere then streak these plumes out horizontally, like black smoke signals against the pink ground. Visualize the silence of these eruptions. In the thin atmosphere, there is no roar, just a silent puff of dark dust drifting slowly in the weak gravity, painting calligraphy on the ice. It is a landscape of frozen art, painted by the last breaths of internal heat. Let your thoughts become like that nitrogen frost, settling softly, covering everything in a layer of pink, silent calm. Drifting far, far beyond the tight orbit of Triton, we seek out a tiny, distant speck named Nereid. This moon is the definition of a wanderer. Nereid has the most eccentric orbit of any moon in the solar system. Sometimes it swings relatively close to Neptune, and then it flings itself out into the deep darkness, travelling millions of kilometres away before slowly, agonizingly turning back. It takes nearly an entire Earth year to complete one lonely loop. Imagine the rhythm of this journey. The long, slow drift away from home into the absolute void, watching the blue planet shrink to a dot. The feeling of stretching the tether to its very limit. And then, the slow pull, the gentle return, swinging back into the warmth of the gravity well. It is a cosmic breathing exercise. Inhale, drifting out, expanding into the emptiness. Exhale, returning, contracting, coming back to center. Nereid spends most of its time in the deep cold, far from the planet. It is a creature of the outskirts. It teaches us that you can wander far from your center. You can drift into the dark places of your mind, and the gravity of who you are will always bring you back. You're never lost. You're just on a long, eccentric orbit. We leave the domain of the gas giants entirely now, crossing the threshold into the Kuiper belt, the twilight zone of the solar system. Here, we find the former ninth planet, Pluto, and its constant companion, Charon. These two are locked in an embrace so tight they are often considered a double planet. Charon is so massive compared to Pluto that they do not orbit the centre of Pluto. They orbit a point in empty space between them, a gravitational pivot point called the barycenter. Visualize two skaters holding hands, spinning around a spot on the ice between them. They are tidally locked, facing each other eternally. If you stood on one side of Pluto, Charon would hang motionless in the sky, a massive, unmoving sentinel, never rising and never setting. If you travelled to the other side of Pluto, you would never know Charon existed. Charon itself has a distinctive feature, a dark red polar cap named Mordor Macula. It is likely formed from methane escaping Pluto's atmosphere, freezing onto Charon's pole, and being baked red by the ultraviolet light of the distant sun. It looks like a rusty cap on a sphere of grey ice. There is a profound intimacy here. In the vast, lonely emptiness of the Kuiper belt, these two worlds have only each other. They face each other in the dark, spinning around a mutual point of balance. Feel that balance. You're not spinning alone. You're held in a dual orbit with your sleep, facing it, locked with it, spinning around a quiet centre of gravity in the dark. Dancing around this central couple are 4 tiny chaotic moons: Styx, Nix, Kerberos, and Hydra. Unlike the majestic, orderly moons of the inner planets, these are shards of ice, shaped like potatoes or elongated eggs, tumbling wildly. Because they orbit a binary system, 2 gravity wells moving around each other, their orbits are chaotic. If you lived on Nix, you would never know when the sun would rise or where it would come up. The days would stretch and shrink unpredictably. It is a dance of pure whimsy. Hydra, the outermost, spins like a top as it orbits. These moons are the playful children of the underworld. They remind us that not everything needs to be predictable. In the deep sleep state, thoughts can tumble like Nix and Hydra. They don't need to make sense. They don't need to rise in the east and set in the west. They can flip and roll and tumble through the dark. Let your logic dissolve into this chaos. Let your thoughts lose their orientation. Let them tumble freely, end over end, shimmering shards of ice catching the distant starlight, with no schedule to keep and no direction to follow. Finally, we push to the very edge of our map, to the scattered disk, to meet Eris and its small moon, Dysnomia. We are so far from the sun now that it is just a particularly bright star in a sea of stars. It is always night here. Eris is a world of hard, white, frozen methane, almost as large as Pluto, and Dysnomia is its lonely companion. The name Dysnomia means lawlessness, but here, the only law is silence. Dysnomia takes about 16 days to circle Eris. In this unimaginable distance, everything moves like molasses. The energy of the sun is a whisper. The atoms themselves vibrate slowly. To look up from the surface of Dysnomia is to look into the true abyss of the galaxy. There is almost nothing between you and the interstellar void. You're standing on the last outpost, the final dock before the open ocean of the universe. The isolation is total, and with it comes a total lack of responsibility. No signal from Earth can reach you quickly here. It would take hours. You're disconnected. You're off the grid. The cold is a preservative, keeping this world unchanged for billions of years. Wrap yourself in this distance. You're as far away from the noise of the world as Dysnomia. You're a small, silent satellite orbiting a frozen world in the deep dark, completely alone, completely safe, and completely free to let go. From the lonely outpost of Dysnomia, we shift our celestial gaze slightly to the side, drifting through the vacuum to another marvel of the Kuiper belt, the egg-shaped dwarf planet Homea. This world is spinning so fast, a complete rotation every 4 hours, that gravity has pulled it into the shape of a smooth, elongated stone you might skip across a pond. But it is not alone in its dizzying pirouette. Dancing around it are 2 children of pure crystal ice, Hisiaka and Namaka. These moons are named after the daughters of the Hawaiian fertility goddess, and they are unique because they are coated in almost pure crystalline water ice. In the chaos of the outer solar system, where most things are covered in ancient reddish dust and tholins, these 2 shine with a ghostly clean brilliance. Imagine the surface of Hisiaka. It is a landscape of frozen purity. Because the water ice is crystalline, its molecules are arranged in a neat, orderly lattice, reflecting the distant starlight with a sharp, diamond-like clarity. It is a world of clarity amidst the confusion. Visualize the light of the Milky Way reflecting off these icy plains. It is not a warm light, but a crisp, blue-white shimmer. It suggests a kind of cleansing. Just as these moons are washed clean of the ancient dust, imagine your own mind being washed clean by the clarity of sleep. The rapid spin of the parent planet is just a blur in the distance, a hum of energy that does not touch you. You're standing on the crystal ice, perfectly still, perfectly clear, reflecting only the peace of the stars. Drifting silently through the shadows of the Kuiper belt, we encounter a presence that is felt before it is seen. We approach the dwarf planet Make. For a long time we thought this world wandered alone, a solitary king of the dark. But hidden in its glare is a moon known only by a code, MK2. This moon is a master of camouflage. While Make is bright, covered in frozen methane that gleams like snow, its moon is as black as charcoal. It is a stealth moon, roughly 1,000 times fainter than its parent. It orbits edge-on, hiding in the blinding reflection of the planet, invisible to our telescopes for years. There is a deep comfort in this invisibility. It is the desire to be present but unseen, to watch without being watched. Imagine wrapping yourself in a cloak of velvet darkness, blending perfectly into the background. You do not need to shine. You do not need to reflect light or capture attention. You can simply exist in the shadow, a dark, quiet companion to the light. The charcoal surface of MK2 absorbs everything: light, heat, noise. It takes it all in and gives nothing back but silence. Feel yourself becoming like this dark moon, absorbing the day, neutralizing it, and resting in the profound safety of the shadow. We engage the engines of our imagination to pull us back inward, swooping past the gas giants, back to the vast rock-strewn river between Mars and Jupiter. We arrive in the asteroid belt. For centuries, humanity believed that asteroids were merely lonely rocks, tumbling in solitude. But then we met Ida and her tiny companion, Dactyl. This was the first proof that even the small can have their own satellites. Ida is a lumpy, potato-shaped rock, grey and cratered, ancient and battered. And floating nearby, suspended in a delicate gravitational dance, is Dactyl. It is tiny, barely a mile wide, a mere pebble in the cosmic scale. Yet, it is a moon. It proves that gravity is a universal language of affection. No matter how small you are, you can still hold on to something. Visualize standing on the surface of Ida. The horizon is close and curved. Overhead, little Dactyl hangs like a grey pearl. It is so close you feel you could almost reach out and pluck it from the sky. The silence here is dusty and dry. There is no atmosphere to scatter the light, so the shadows are absolute black and the sunlit rock is blinding white. It is a world of stark simplicity. There are no weather patterns, no oceans, no changing seasons, just the slow, tumbling rhythm of two rocks holding hands in the dark. It is a reminder that you do not need to be a planet to have a centre. You do not need to be massive to attract what belongs to you. Small things orbit small things, and the connection is just as valid, just as strong, and just as peaceful. Continuing our exploration of these unique relationships, we drift back toward the golden glow of Saturn to observe a phenomenon of perfect balance. We visit the moons Tethys and Dione, but we do not look at them directly. Instead, we look to the empty spaces ahead of them and behind them in their orbits. Floating there, locked in the gravitational sweet spots known as Lagrange points, are the Trojan moons, Telesto, Calypso, Helene, and Polydeuces. These are the stowaways of the solar system. They do not have their own orbits. They share the orbit of a larger sister, sitting exactly 60 degrees ahead or 60 degrees behind, trapped in a pocket of gravitational stability. They are safe harbours in the vacuum. Visualize a leaf caught in a gentle eddy of a stream, swirling softly in place while the river flows on. That is the existence of a Trojan moon. They are forever following, or forever leading, but never catching up and never falling behind. Helene, the Trojan of Dione, is a smooth, icy body, drifting in the leading point. It experiences no tidal stress, no orbital decay. It is simply carried along by the gravity of the larger system. It represents the ultimate form of surrender. You do not need to drive the car, you do not need to steer the ship. You can simply find the pocket of stability, the Lagrange point of your life, and let the greater forces carry you around the sun. You're suspended in safety, held by invisible hands, drifting in the wake of the giants. From the stable pockets of Saturn, we drift inward, past the red rust of Mars, and approach our own blue-white marble, Earth. But we're not looking at the moon, we know. We're looking for the ghosts that visit us. These are the mini-moons. Every so often, a small asteroid, wandering through the inner solar system, gets caught in Earth's gravity. It does not crash, and it does not stay forever. It enters a chaotic, temporary orbit, dancing around our planet for a few months or a year, and then is flung back out into the Sun's orbit. One such visitor was 2006 RH-120, a tiny rock a few meters across that lived with us for a year before leaving. These are the ephemeral guests of the night. Imagine a small bird landing on your windowsill, resting its wings for a moment, watching you sleep, and then taking flight again at dawn. There is no attachment here. The minimoon does not cling to the Earth. The Earth does not hoard the minimoon. It is a relationship of fluidity. It reminds you that thoughts and worries are just minimoons. They enter the gravity of your mind. They circle for a while, perhaps causing a small wobble, and then, if you let them, they drift away again into the great void. You are the stable planet. You remain. The visitors come and go, small silent stones passing through the night, leaving no trace behind but the memory of their visit. Staying in the neighbourhood of Earth, we discover a partner that is even more elusive, engaged in a dance of avoidance. This is Cruthon. Often called Earth's second moon, it is not a true moon, but a companion in a horseshoe orbit. Cruthon takes exactly 1 year to go around the Sun, just like Earth. But because of its intricate path, from our perspective, it looks like it is tracing a giant kidney bean shape in the sky. It moves closer to Earth, and then, just as it seems they might meet, the delicate exchange of orbital energy pushes it away, and it drifts back. It is a cosmic game of tag where the players never touch. They have been dancing this do-si-do for millennia. Visualize this loop. It is a vast, sweeping curve through the cosmos. Cruthon is a symbol of boundaries. It stays close enough to be a companion, sharing our journey around the star, but keeps enough distance to maintain its own identity. It respects the space. It respects the silence between worlds. Feel the rhythm of that horseshoe path. Swinging in, swinging out, swinging in, swinging out. It is the rhythm of breath. The air comes in, filling you, coming close to your core, and then swings out, releasing, drifting away, only to return in a perfect, predictable cycle of approach and retreat. We now turn our focus from the orbital dynamics to the microscopic texture of the lunar experience. We float down to the surface of our own moon, landing softly in the Sea of Tranquility. We crouch down to examine the ground. This is regolith. It is not like the sand on a beach, which has been smoothed by millions of years of wind and water. This dust is jagged, sharp, and interlocking. It is the result of billions of years of silent bombardment by micrometeoroids, tiny grains of space dust hitting the rock at high speeds, shattering it into a fine charcoal grey powder. Because there is no wind to tumble it, the edges remain razor sharp. But when it piles up, it behaves like a fluffy, cohesive flower. Astronauts described it as stepping into wet snow or charcoal dust. Visualize pressing your hand into this surface. It yields perfectly, holding the shape of your palm in absolute detail. The print you leave there will stay for 1,000,000 years. There is no breeze to blow it away, no rain to wash it smooth. It is the ultimate memory foam. It speaks of a stillness so profound that a single footprint becomes a geological monument. The regolith absorbs the light, absorbing the history. Sink into your own mattress now, feeling it contour to your body like the lunar dust. Let it hold you. Let it take the weight of your shape, supporting you with the same silent, static reliability of the lunar surface, holding you still in the vacuum of the night. As we lie on this grey powdery surface, we feel a very faint, almost imperceptible vibration beneath us. These are moonquakes. Unlike earthquakes, which are violent and brief, shaking the world with the grinding of tectonic plates, moonquakes are subtle, rhythmic, and incredibly long-lasting. The moon is a single solid stone, cold and rigid. When it shudders, often caused by the tidal pull of the earth or the cooling of its own interior, it rings like a bell. A single tremor can vibrate through the moon for an hour or more, a low resonant hum that fades with agonizing slowness. Imagine the entire sphere of the moon as a giant singing bowl struck gently by gravity. The vibration is a low-frequency purr, a deep thermal sigh. It is the sound of the moon settling. It is the sound of tension being released, not with a snap, but with a long, sustaining note. Feel that vibration in your own bones, a low, steady hum of relaxation. When you release tension, it doesn't have to be instant. You can let it ring out, fading slowly, minute by minute, the amplitude decreasing until the hum dissolves back into the perfect silence of the stone. The moon is shrinking as it cools, getting smaller, tighter, more comfortable in its own skin. You too are settling, cooling down from the day, finding a smaller, quieter shape for the night. While resting on these planes, you might notice a sensation of heaviness that shifts as you move. We're drifting over the lunar mascons, mass concentrations. These are hidden anomalies beneath the crust, giant basins of dense, heavy lava that solidified billions of years ago. They create localized pockets of stronger gravity. If you were flying a satellite over a mascon, you would be pulled down slightly, dipping towards the surface before rising again. It is a secret topography of weight. The surface looks flat, but the gravity is rolling hills and valleys. Visualize these invisible anchors buried deep in the rock. They are like heavy, comforting weights placed on a blanket. They pin the moon down. They pin you down. Imagine a mascon beneath your chest, another beneath your hips, another beneath your legs. They are not crushing you. They are grounding you. They are increasing the gravity just enough to keep you from floating away. They pull you deeper into the bed, deeper into the dream. The invisible density of the night is holding you. You are heavy. You are dense. You are anchored by the ancient, solidified history of your own day, which has now become just a weight to keep you safe and still. Finally, we lift off from the lunar surface, rising higher and higher, until the Earth and Moon are just twin stars in the distance. We open our minds to the concept of the retrograde capture, a universal truth we observed with Triton but which applies to the entire cosmos. In the early chaotic days of any solar system, many moons did not form where they are. They were caught. They were wanderers, flying through the dark with their own agendas, their own speeds. And then they encountered something bigger, a gas giant, a rocky planet. And instead of colliding, instead of flying past, they were slowed down. They were accepted. To be captured in astronomical terms is not to be imprisoned. It is to be given a home. It is the moment when a wandering object finds a centre. Often they enter these orbits backwards, spinning the wrong way, distinct and unique, and the planet accepts them anyway. The gravity well is wide and welcoming. It says, "Come in, you can stay. You don't have to spin like me, you just have to stay." Visualize yourself as a wanderer in the dark. You have been flying fast all day, dodging impacts, navigating the void, and now you feel the pull of the great sleep. It is capturing you. It is slowing you down. It doesn't matter if your thoughts are spinning backwards. It doesn't matter if you feel out of place. The gravity of sleep is capturing you now, pulling you into a soft, elliptical orbit. You are being reeled in. The wandering is over. You have been caught by the night, and you are safe to circle here for as long as you need. We allow the concept of the capture to settle in your mind, the feeling of being held by a force larger than yourself, and we let that momentum carry us outward, past the boundaries of our own solar map, into the deep, interstellar cathedral of the exomoons. We have spent our journey thus far circling the familiar fires of our own sun, visiting the children of our known planets. But now, we expand your awareness to the infinite possibilities that lie in the velvet dark beyond. just as every star you see is a sun, potentially hosting its own family of planets, those distant alien planets are likely shepherded by their own moons. These are the exomoons. We have not yet seen them directly, for they are the ghosts of the galaxy, hidden in the glare of their parent stars, but we know they are there. We detect them in the data, in the tiny rhythmic dips of light as they pass in front of a star, a double beat in the heart of the cosmos. Imagine a moon the size of Neptune orbiting a planet the size of Jupiter, a world of gas orbiting a world of gas, floating in the light of a twin sun. Visualize the night sky from the surface of an exomoon. It might have 3 suns, or none at all, illuminated only by the glow of a brown dwarf. This is the realm of pure imagination. It is a canvas that has not yet been painted by probes or telescopes. It is waiting for you. Let your mind wander into this endless dark. There are billions of moons out there, billions of silent sentinels watching over billions of worlds. The universe is not empty. It is crowded with quiet guardians. Feel the comfort of that crowd. You're not a solitary consciousness in a void. You're surrounded by an infinite embrace of worlds, layer upon layer, stretching out forever. From the incomprehensible distances of the galaxy, we pull our focus back with a gentle snap, returning to the intimate, deceptive comfort of the human eye. We drift back to Earth, standing on a twilight hill, watching the full moon rise above the horizon. Here, we encounter the moon illusion. You have likely seen this phenomenon. When the moon hangs low, just above the trees or the rooftops, it appears colossal, a giant glowing lantern that dwarfs the landscape. And yet, hours later, when it rides high in the zenith of the sky, it seems small and distant. This is a trick of the mind. The moon does not change its size. It does not swell with pride as it rises. It is your brain, trying to make sense of the world, comparing the moon to the trees, to the buildings, and deciding that it must be massive to be that far away. It is a benevolent deception. It is your mind creating grandeur where there is only geometry. There is a coziness in this illusion. It makes the celestial feel close. It makes the satellite feel like a neighbour, looming large in your backyard, peeking over the fence. Allow yourself to be fooled. You do not need the cold truth of measurements right now. You need the feeling of the giant moon, the heavy, warm presence of it filling your vision. Let the moon be big. Let it be heavy. Let it weigh down your eyelids with its magnified golden light. As we watch this giant orb rise, we become aware of its slow, rhythmic breathing. This is the cycle of the lunar phases. The moon is not a static object. It is a shapeshifter. It grows from a slender silver paring of a fingernail, the new crescent, into a half circle of balance, and finally into the full, round face of the mother moon, before slowly fading away again into the dark. This is the heartbeat of the night sky. It takes 29.5 days for this breath to complete. Inhale, the light grows, spreading across the cratered surface, reclaiming the dark. Exhale, the shadow returns, the Terminator line creeping forward, tucking the world back into bed. There is a profound peace in this predictability. No matter what happens in your life, no matter the chaos of the day, the moon will wax and it will wane. It will fill up and it will empty out. Visualize yourself synchronized with this cycle. You are currently in the waning phase. You're letting the light fade. You're letting the activity shrink. You're becoming the crescent, a sliver of silver in the dark, curling up, preparing to disappear into the refreshing void of the new moon, where there is no light, only the perfect restorative rest of the shadow. But even when the moon is a crescent, even when it seems the shadow has won, there is a secret light that persists. Look closely at the dark portion of a crescent moon. It is not pitch black. It glows with a faint, ghostly ash-coloured light. This is Earthshine. It is the reflection of a reflection. Sunlight hits the Earth, bounces off our bright white clouds and deep blue oceans, travels across the void to the moon, illuminates the dark lunar soil, and then reflects back to your eye. It is the old moon in the new moon's arms. Leonardo da Vinci was the first to explain this ghostly glow, sketching it in his notebooks with a hand guided by wonder. It is a connection of light between the two worlds. It means that even when the moon turns its back on the sun, the Earth is there to hold a flashlight for it. It is a subtle, tender illumination. It is the nightlight of the cosmos. Imagine that soft, ashen glow surrounding you now. It is not the harsh glare of the sun. It is a recycled, softened, gentle light. It is the light of empathy, the light of shared existence. It reminds you that you are never truly in the dark. There is always a reflection, a glow, a presence that keeps the absolute blackness at bay. We float away from the light now, drifting into the mechanics of gravity, to the invisible boundary that decides the fate of all moons. This is the Roche limit. It sounds like a cliff, and in a way it is. Every planet has an invisible line surrounding it, a distance determined by its density and gravity. If a moon strays across this line, venturing too close to its parent, the tidal forces become too strong. The gravity pulling on the near side of the moon becomes so much stronger than the gravity pulling on the far side that the moon is torn apart. It disintegrates. It crumbles into dust and ice. This sounds violent, but in the slow motion of the cosmos, it is a creative act. This is how rings are born. A moon sacrifices itself, breaking into 1 trillion tiny pieces to form a beautiful, shimmering halo around the planet. Visualize this dissolution, a solid rock letting go of its form, relaxing its internal cohesion, and spreading out into a smooth, flowing river of particles. It is the ultimate release of tension. The moon stops fighting the gravity and simply becomes part of the flow. Let your own tension dissolve in the same way. You're crossing the Roche limit of sleep. You're no longer holding yourself together as a solid, rigid being. You're softening, spreading out, dissolving into a ring of peaceful consciousness, circling the center of the dream. In the complex dance of Saturn, where rings and moons mingle, we find a relationship that defies the laws of collision. We encounter the co-orbital moons, Janus and Epimetheus. These two moons share almost the exact same orbit. They are like two cars racing on a circular track, one slightly inside, one slightly outside. Every 4 years, the inner moon, moving faster, catches up to the outer moon. In a universe of collisions, you would expect a crash. But gravity is a polite choreographer. As they approach, they exchange momentum. The inner moon gives some energy to the outer moon, boosting it up to a higher orbit, while the inner moon drops down. They effectively swap places. They do not touch. They perform a graceful doussi-dou, a pirouette of avoidance, and then drift apart again. They have been doing this for billions of years, meeting, swapping, and parting. It is a dance of perfect respect. It teaches us that conflict is not inevitable. Even when paths cross, even when space is tight, there is a way to move around, to yield, to exchange energy and carry on. Visualize this silent pass. 2 grey cratered rocks, looming large in each other's sky, silently nodding, shifting lanes, and continuing their eternal journey. It is a rhythm of approach and retreat, a cosmic politeness that keeps the system in balance. We leave the fluid dynamics of the gas giants and land back on the solid, dusty silence of our own moon to witness the slow march of time. We stand on the Terminator line. This is not a robot from the future. It is the moving line that divides the day side of the moon from the night side. Because the moon spins so slowly, this line crawls across the surface at a walking pace, roughly 10 miles per hour. If you were jogging on the moon, you could race the sunset and win. You could stay in the eternal twilight forever. Imagine standing on this line. To your left, the brutal, blinding white of the 2-week-long lunar day. To your right, the freezing, absolute black of the 2-week-long lunar night. And you're in the middle, in the grey zone of long shadows. The shadows here stretch out for miles, exaggerating every pebble into a monolith. The temperature drops hundreds of degrees in a single step. It is the frontier of sleep. The Terminator is sweeping over you now. The bright, busy day is on one side, but you're stepping over the line. You're stepping into the cool, long shadow. You're letting the sun set behind you. You're matching your pace with the slow rotation of the rock, walking calmly into the darkness, leaving the heat and the light behind. As we walk through the lunar twilight, we stumble upon a mystery painted on the ground. These are the lunar swirls. Most famous is Rhina Gamma, a formation that looks like a giant bright tadpole or a swirling abstract tattoo painted onto the dark lava plains of the Ocean of Storms. For centuries, astronomers were baffled. These swirls have no height. They cast no shadows. They are purely differences in colour, like chalk on a blackboard. We now believe they are magnetic anomalies, ancient magnetic fields locked in the crust that act as umbrellas. They shield the surface from the solar wind, preventing the soil from darkening over time. While the rest of the moon gets a tan from the sun, these protected spots remain pale and pristine. It is a sunscreen made of magnetism. Visualize these swirling patterns, bright white loops and curves against the dark grey basalt. They look like cream stirred into coffee. They are static storms, frozen in place. They remind us that there are invisible forces protecting us. Just as the magnetic field shields the white dust, there is a shield around your sleep, an invisible barrier that keeps the noise away, keeping your mind pale, quiet, and unweathered by the storm of the world outside. While the moon is mostly a silent, still world, every now and then it whispers. This is the phenomenon of TLP, transient lunar phenomena. For centuries, observers looking through telescopes have reported strange, fleeting things. A flash of pink light in a crater, a sudden fog appearing where there should be no air, a red glow that pulses and fades. These are likely small releases of gas from deep within the moon, burps of argon or radon escaping from the cracking crust, or perhaps the glow of electrostatic levitating dust. It tells us that the moon is not dead. It is merely sleeping deeply. It sighs. It shifts. It has tiny, fleeting moments of activity before returning to the stone-cold silence. Visualize a small puff of glittering mist rising from a crater floor, catching the starlight for a fleeting second, and then dissipating into nothingness. It is a thought passing through a meditating mind. It appears, it glows, and it vanishes. You do not need to chase it. You do not need to analyze it. You just watch the flash of pink, acknowledge the sigh, and let the silence rush back in to fill the space. We conclude this sequence by travelling to the quietest place in the entire solar system. We float around to the far side of the moon, to the floor of the Daedalus crater. Because the moon acts as a giant shield, blocking all the radio waves, television signals, and chatter from Earth, the far side is radio dark. It is the only place where the screaming noise of humanity cannot reach. No broadcasts, no Wi-Fi, no GPS signals, just the static hiss of the universe. If you were to lie down in the centre of the Daedalus crater, you would be in the ultimate soundproof booth. Above you, the Milky Way would shine with a brilliance impossible to see from Earth. The silence here is physical. It is a thick, velvet pressure. It is a silence that has lasted for eons. This is where we leave you for this moment, in the shadow of the crater wall, shielded from the Earth, facing the open, silent galaxy. There is no signal here. There is no notification. There is only the deep, resonant hum of the cosmos and the slow, steady rhythm of your own breath, synchronized with the turning of the spheres. We remain in the profound radio silence of the lunar far side, shielded from the noise of humanity, and from this place of quiet, we allow our awareness to sink even deeper, sliding down into the largest, deepest impact crater in the entire solar system. We are drifting now into the South Pole Aitken Basin. If you were to look at the moon from a great distance, you might notice that the southern hemisphere of the far side looks darker, deeper, and more shadowed. This is because, billions of years ago, a colossal impactor, an asteroid of unimaginable size, crashed into the moon with such force that it nearly punched through to the core. It excavated a bowl measuring 2,500 kilometers across and 13 kilometers deep. Visualize this abyss. It is deeper than the Mariana Trench, wider than the continent of Australia. It is the basement of the moon. Floating down into this basin is like descending into the prehistoric soul of the satellite. The crust here is thin, stripped away by the violence of the past to reveal the darker, iron-rich mantle beneath. Because it is so deep, the floor of the basin is permanently shadowed in many places, hidden from the sun for billions of years. These are the regions of permanent shadow. The temperature here hovers near absolute zero. It is a preservation chamber. It holds the original silence of the universe. Imagine lying at the bottom of this immense bowl, the walls rising up miles above you, blocking out the stars on the horizon. You're cradled in the deepest scar of history. But the scar is not painful. It is a container. It holds the darkness like a heavy, cool liquid. Let yourself sink to the very bottom of this basin, feeling the immense sense of grounding that comes from being at the lowest point, where there is nowhere left to fall, only the solid, unmoving foundation of the ancient rock. Buried within the geology of this ancient world and concentrated on the near side that faces us is a strange and warming anomaly known to geochemists as the creep terrain. The name sounds odd, an acronym for potassium, rare earth elements, and phosphorus. But the sensation it evokes is one of hidden warmth. When the moon was young and molten, a glowing ocean of magma, it slowly cooled and crystallized. As it froze, certain elements, the ones that didn't fit neatly into the crystal structures of the rock, were pushed aside, concentrated into a final uncrystallized liquid residue. This magic liquid, rich in heat-generating radioactive elements like thorium and uranium, gathered beneath the crust of the ocean of storms. It is a geochemical hearth. While the rest of the moon is cold and dead, this region remains faintly, subtly warm from the radioactive decay of these ancient elements. It is a thermal blanket hidden under the sheets of basalt. Visualize this hidden heat. It is not a burning fire, but a gentle residual warmth, like a stone that has been sitting in the sun all day and continues to radiate heat long into the night. It suggests that deep within the cold exterior, there is still a concentration of energy, a special reserve of warmth that does not fade. Feel that warmth in your own core, a concentrated, dense richness of energy that keeps you warm from the inside out, even as your skin cools and relaxes into the air of the room. We leave the thermal pockets of the moon and drift outward again, riding the solar wind back to the tilted turquoise kingdom of Uranus to observe a lesson in discipline. We find the moons Cordelia and Ophelia. These are the shepherds of the Epsilon ring, the brightest and densest ring of Uranus. Unlike the broad, flowing rings of Saturn, the Epsilon ring is incredibly narrow, a tight ribbon of dark boulders and ice. It shouldn't exist. The particles should have spread out into a wide, messy haze eons ago, but they are kept in line by these two small moons. Cordelia runs along the inside track, and Ophelia runs along the outside. They act like sheepdogs, or the banks of a river. If a ring particle drifts too far in, Cordelia pushes it back. If it drifts too far out, Ophelia nudges it home. They create a boundary of pressure. Visualize this ribbon of dark ice, flowing fast and straight between the two guardians. It creates a sense of focused flow. It is the feeling of a mind that has been quieted, the thoughts no longer scattering in every direction, but channeled into a single smooth stream of sleep. You are safe between the moons. The boundaries are set. You do not need to worry about drifting off into chaos. The shepherds are there, keeping the flow tight, keeping the stream pure, guiding you along the dark, silent river of the night. Drifting from the dark rings of Uranus to the glorious bright rings of Saturn, we encounter a more mischievous pair of shepherds, Prometheus and Atlas. Here, the interaction is less about discipline and more about a complex gravitational dance with the F ring. Prometheus, potato-shaped and porous, actually dips into the F-ring once every orbit. It is a thief in the night. As it dives in, its gravity pulls a streamer of icy material away from the ring, creating a kink or a braid in the dusty structure. It looks like a wake behind a boat, a series of dark channels carved into the bright ice. This is not a destructive act. It creates texture. The F-ring is twisted, knotted, and braided, thanks to the constant interference of Prometheus. It reminds us that our sleep does not have to be a flat, featureless plane. It can have texture. It can have dreams that dip in and pull out memories, creating braids of thought that weave together before dissolving. Atlas, on the other hand, resembles a flying saucer, with a huge, smooth ridge around its equator formed by accumulating ring dust. It wears the ring it guards. Visualize Prometheus dipping softly into the stream of ice, creating a gentle ripple that spirals out behind it. It is a hypnotic, repetitive motion. Dip and pull, dip and pull. Let the rhythm of this gravitational interaction rock you. You are the ring, and the moon is the gentle gravity of sleep, dipping into your consciousness, pulling the tension away, leaving behind a smooth, braided wake of relaxation. Nestled deep within the E-ring of Saturn, shielded by the larger icy moons like Mimas and Enceladus, lie three tiny perfect secrets: Methane, Anthe, and Pallene. Collectively known as the Alkyonides, these are among the smallest moons in the Saturnian system, but they are startlingly beautiful. Unlike their battered, cratered cousins, these tiny worlds, some only a few kilometers across, are incredibly smooth. They look like eggs. They're covered in a deep drifts of ice particles, likely sprayed from the geysers of Enceladus. Because they have very low gravity, this fluffy, powder-like ice doesn't pack down hard. It coats them in a soft, pillowy layer that smooths over every crater and every sharp edge. They are soft worlds. Imagine holding methane in your hand. It would feel like a snowball made of the finest, driest powder, perfectly round and white. There are no sharp rocks here, no jagged cliffs, just smooth, rolling curves of white dust. They float in the ring arcs, protected and hidden. They evoke a sense of softness that is rare in the harsh vacuum of space. Let your mind become as smooth as methane. Let the snow of sleep fill in the craters of your day, covering the sharp worries, burying the jagged stress, until you are a perfect smooth sphere of white calm, floating weightless in the shelter of the rings. From the icy spray of the Saturnian system, we follow the concept of mist back to the atmosphere of Earth, to witness a phenomenon that marries the moon with the water of our own world. We speak of the moonbow. You know the rainbow, a vibrant arch of colour born from sunlight hitting rain. But the moon creates them too. When the full moon is low and bright, and the air is filled with the mist of a waterfall or a gentle night rain, a lunar rainbow appears. But because the moonlight is so much fainter than sunlight, the human eye often cannot perceive the colours. To us, it appears as a ghostly, pearl-white arch stretching across the starry sky. It is a bow of pure silver. It is only in a long exposure photograph that the faint reds and blues reveal themselves. To the naked eye, it is a phantom. Imagine standing at the base of a great waterfall at night, perhaps Cumberland Falls or Victoria Falls. The roar of the water is a white noise that drowns out all thought. The mist rises up, cool and damp against your face, and there, cutting through the spray, is a silent white arc of light. It is fragile, ethereal, and incredibly rare. It is a bridge of light built on the darkness. Walk across that bridge in your mind. It is made of mist and moonlight. It has no substance, yet it is there. It connects the waking world to the dream world, a pale, shimmering path that invites you to leave the solid ground and dissolve into the mist. We look up at the moon again, seeing it not just as a rock, but as an object with a trailing presence. We tend to think of comets as the only things with tails, but the moon has one too. It is the sodium tail. The surface of the moon is constantly bombarded by the solar wind and micrometeorites, which knock sodium atoms loose from the soil. These atoms are caught by the pressure of sunlight and pushed out behind the moon, forming a long, invisible beam of sodium gas that stretches for hundreds of thousands of kilometers into space. It is like a comet's tail, but made of metal vapor. And here is the magic. Once a month, during the new moon phase, the Earth passes directly through this tail. You're being touched by the moon right now. Invisible streams of lunar atoms are flowing around the Earth, mingling with our upper atmosphere. It is a cosmic caress. Gravity is not the only connection. There is a material connection, a river of particles that we swim through. Visualize this yellow beam of sodium, invisible to the eye but real to the universe, sweeping over the Earth like a lighthouse beam. It bathes the planet in moon dust. Feel the connection. You're not separate from the moon. You're swimming in its wake. It is a subtle, metallic perfume that wraps around the world, a reminder that celestial bodies are constantly sharing pieces of themselves with each other. We travel back to the king of the planets, Jupiter, to witness a light show on its largest moon, Ganymede. We have mentioned that Ganymede is the only moon with a magnetic field, a protective bubble. Because of this field, Ganymede has aurorae. Just like the northern lights on Earth, glowing bands of electrified gas dance around the moon's north and south poles. But Ganymede's aurora is unique. It is trapped inside the massive, overwhelming magnetic field of Jupiter. As Jupiter rotates, its magnetic field sweeps over Ganymede, causing the moon's aurora to rock back and forth. Astronomers call it a magnetic rocking chair. The glowing rings of ultraviolet light tilt to the left, then tilt to the right in a rhythmic, hypnotic motion. Visualize these glowing halos of violet light pulsing and swaying in the dark above the icy surface. They are dancing to the rhythm of the giant planet, rocking, rocking, back and forth. It is the cradle of the cosmos. Imagine that you're lying on the ice of Ganymede, looking up at the sky. You see the ribbons of light swaying above you, a celestial mobile moving in slow motion. Let your mind sync with that rocking motion, left and right. Inhale and exhale. It is a lullaby written in plasma and magnetic fields, rocking you gently into a deep, magnetized sleep. We drift to the neighboring moon, the ancient battered Callisto, to revisit the concept of the ripple, frozen in eternity. We hover over the Valhalla Basin. This is not a simple crater. It is a multi-ring impact structure. When the impactor hit Callisto billions of years ago, it didn't just make a hole. It punched the hard, icy crust, which was floating on a softer, warmer layer of ice below. The result was that the surface rippled like a pond when you throw a stone in. Massive, concentric waves of ice spread out from the center, ring after ring after ring, extending nearly 2,000 kilometers outward. But because the ice is hard, the ripples froze. They're captured forever as concentric ridges and scarps. It is a fossilized splash. Visualize a stone dropped into a dark pool. See the waves spreading out, perfect circles expanding. Now, freeze time. The water becomes stone. The motion becomes stillness. This is Valhalla. It is a monument to the fact that even the most violent shocks eventually turn into static beauty. The shockwave has become a landscape. The energy has dissipated. Trace the rings with your mind's eye, starting from the center and moving out, over the first ridge, the second, the third, drifting further and further out until the ripples are barely bumps in the smooth ice, fading into the flatness of the rest of the moon. Finally, we return to the rings of Saturn to observe the invisible. We look for the propellers. For years, scientists saw strange disturbances in the rings, double streaks that looked like the blades of an airplane propeller. These are caused by moonlets, tiny moons only a few hundred meters across, too small to be seen by our cameras, but massive enough to clear a small gap in the ring dust. They are the ghost moons. We know they are there only by the wake they leave behind. They create a disturbance, a shifting of the grain, a pattern in the flow. There are thousands of them, hidden in the white river of the A-ring. They are the quiet influences. They remind us that you do not need to be seen to be real. You do not need to be loud to have an effect. Deep in your subconscious, there are propeller thoughts, small, quiet ideas that are clearing space, organizing your mind, creating patterns of calm that you might not even notice. You don't need to find them. You don't need to name them. Just watch the wake they create. Watch the smooth, propeller-shaped gaps in the noise where the dust has been cleared away and only the pure black vacuum remains. It is the space between thoughts. It is the silence between beats. Drift into that gap, that propeller-shaped clearing, and find rest in the invisible. We linger in the silent, invisible clearings of the propeller moons, feeling the absence of dust, the pure emptiness of the gap. From this place of negative space, we allow our vision to adjust to the subtle, ghostly shifting of the light on the great B-ring of Saturn. As you float above the vast golden expanse of Saturn's B-ring, you might witness a phenomenon that looks like a trick of the eye, a fleeting hallucination in the ring plane. These are the spokes. They are not solid objects, they are shadows, dark wedge-shaped fingers that stretch radially across the rings, appearing and disappearing in a matter of minutes. Imagine breathing onto a cold window pane. The fog appears, lingers for a moment, and then evaporates. That is the nature of a spoke. They are composed of microscopic dust particles lifted away from the main ring plane by electrostatic forces. The massive magnetic field of Saturn charges the dust, levitating it above the larger boulders, casting long shadows on the ice below. It is a suspension of gravity. It is the universe holding its breath. Watch as a dark wedge forms silently, turning with the rings like the spoke of a great cosmic wheel, and then, just as softly, dissolves back into the brilliance of the ice. It teaches us about the impermanence of our own thoughts. Dark or heavy thoughts may rise up, casting a shadow over the mind, but they are just electrostatic dust. They have no weight. They are transient. Watch them form, acknowledge their shape, and then watch them dissolve, leaving the golden ring of your consciousness bright and unbroken. Drifting closer to the outer edge of the A-ring, we find the artist responsible for the vertical textures of this system. This is Daphnis, the wave maker. Daphnis orbits inside the Keeler Gap, a narrow highway of empty space 42 kilometers wide. But Daphnis is not content to simply float, it interacts. Because its orbit is slightly inclined, it bobs up and down as it travels. As it passes the edges of the gap, its gravity pulls on the ring particles, creating vertical waves. Imagine a boat travelling through a calm lake, leaving a wake that ripples outward. Now, imagine that wake rising up into the sky. Daphnis creates waves of ice that rise nearly a mile above the ring plane. From our vantage point, they look like the peaks of whipped cream, or the scalloped edges of a fine seashell. It is a rhythmic disturbance, up and down, up and down. The visual is hypnotic, a silent ship sailing through a sea of ice, leaving behind a trail of perfect standing waves that cast long, needle-like shadows across the gap. Let your breath match this undulation. Rise with the wave of Daphnis, pause at the peak, and sink back down into the trough, riding the gravitational wake of the moon in a slow oceanic rhythm. Moving to the very edge of the main rings, we encounter a moon that has shaped itself by gathering the softness of its surroundings. This is Atlas. For decades we knew it only as a small point of light, but when we finally saw it up close it looked remarkably like a flying saucer or a piece of smooth ravioli. Atlas has a prominent spherical centre, but it is wrapped in a wide, smooth ridge that runs around its equator. This ridge is made of the finest ring dust. As Atlas orbits on the edge of the rings, it acts like a sweeper, accumulating the stray particles that drift too close. But it does not crash into them, it gently gathers them. The dust settles softly onto the moon's waist, building up layer by delicate layer, smoothing out the rough edges, creating a wide, soft skirt. It is a process of accumulation. It suggests that over time, We can soften our own edges. We can gather the soft, quiet moments of our days and wrap them around our core, building a ridge of comfort that protects us. Visualize the dust settling on Atlas. It is a silent snowfall on a dark world, piling up, softening the geometry, turning a jagged rock into a smooth, sculpted form that glides effortlessly through the void. We leave the golden realm of Saturn now, propelled by the thought of this accumulated dust, and drift inward toward the giant Jupiter. We are looking for a moon that is not white or grey, but the colour of deep, dried blood. We find Amalthea. This is the reddest object in the solar system. It orbits incredibly close to Jupiter, deep within the dangerous radiation belts, closer even than Io. Amalthea is a martyr of the system. It is being sandblasted by micrometeoroids and baked by the radiation. The red colour likely comes from sulphur escaping from Io's volcanoes, painting Amalthea in a thick coat of rust. But in this harshness, there is a strange beauty. Amalthea is glowing with heat. It actually radiates more heat than it receives from the sun, warmed by the electrical currents induced by Jupiter's magnetic field. It is a warm ember in the cold dark. Imagine holding a smooth red stone in your hand that is warm to the touch. That is Amalthea. It is shaped like a chaotic potato, pointing its long axis perpetually toward Jupiter. It is a reminder that you can exist in a high-energy environment, close to the source of power, and absorb that energy, turning it into your own internal warmth. Feel that heat radiating from your own centre, a deep red warmth that permeates your muscles, relaxing them from the inside out. Far, far away from the intense heat of Amalthea, in the distant suburbs of the Jovian system, we find the Calm Group. These are the rebels of Jupiter, a cluster of irregular moons, Calm, Taygete, Euclid and others, that orbit in retrograde. They move in the opposite direction to the planet's spin and the inner moons. This tells us they were not born here, they were captured. They are a family of strangers who found a home together. They orbit at such a distance, over 23 million kilometers out, that Jupiter is just a small bright disk in their sky. The sun is small too. The isolation here is profound. They move in a tangled, chaotic knot of orbits, tilting and swaying. Yet, they do not collide. They have found a stability in their chaos. Visualize this distant dance. It is like a flock of birds circling a distant tower, weaving in and out, independent yet bound by a common center. It is a feeling of loose attachment. You do not need to be tightly wound. You do not need to be in perfect sync with the world. You can be out on the fringe, moving in your own direction, retrograde and free, held only by the faintest, most gentle thread of gravity. We release the gas giants entirely now, letting their gravity fade behind us and drift back to the familiar cratered grey of our own moon. We are looking for the ghosts of ancient rivers. We find the sinuous rills. From orbit, they look like winding riverbeds, meandering curves that snake across the dark lava plains. The most famous is Schroeter's Valley, a grand canyon that twists like a serpent. But no water ever flowed here. These are the collapsed remains of giant lava tubes. Billions of years ago, rivers of molten rock flowed here, crusted over at the top and then drained away, leaving hollow tunnels that eventually caved in. What remains is a channel of memory. It is the path of least resistance, immortalized in stone. Trace the curve of Schroeter's Valley with your mind. It bends and turns, wide and deep, a canyon of shadow. It represents the flow of energy that has passed. The fire is gone. The liquid is gone. All that is left is the peaceful, empty channel. Allow your mind to become like a reel. Let the thoughts drain away. Let the hot, rushing energy of the day flow out, leaving behind a cool, empty channel, a quiet groove in the landscape of your mind where the shadows can rest. Zooming in closer to these dark plains, we shift our perspective from the miles-wide canyons to the microscopic. If you were to sift through the grey dust of the lunar regolith, specifically near the Taurus-Littrow Valley, you might find something that gleams like a jewel. These are the orange glass spherules. They're tiny beads of volcanic glass, no bigger than a grain of salt. They were created 3.5 billion years ago during a fire fountain eruption, where lava was sprayed high into the vacuum. The droplets froze instantly in the cold of space, turning into perfect microscopic spheres of orange and black glass before raining back down. They have been buried there ever since, waiting. It is a hidden treasure in the dust. The moon is not just grey, it has pockets of colour, pockets of jewels. Visualize running your hand through the grey dust and finding it sparkling with millions of tiny orange beads. It is a texture of hidden richness. It reminds us that even in the driest, dustiest, most monotone moments of life, there are tiny, preserved spheres of colour and beauty waiting to be found. Let your mind focus on a single, tiny bead of orange glass, perfect and smooth, resting in the silence of the dust. We lift our eyes from the ground to the horizon to witness one of the most breathtaking lighting effects in the solar system, the golden handle. This phenomenon occurs roughly 2 days after the first quarter moon. The sun rises over the Bay of Rainbows, Sinus Iridum. The bay is surrounded by the Jura Mountains, a high, curved range of peaks. As the sun rises, the floor of the bay is still in deep shadow, buried in the night. But the mountain peaks are high enough to catch the first rays of the dawn. They light up in a brilliant curved arc of gold, hanging suspended in the darkness, seemingly detached from the rest of the moon. It looks like a handle of light floating in the void. It is a promise of the morning that is yet to come. It is the light touching the highest points first. Visualize that arc, a scimitar of glowing light against the velvet black. It is a visual anchor. Grab onto the golden handle, let it lift you out of the shadows, or perhaps see it as a handle to a door that opens into the deepest, most restful sleep. The handle is glowing, inviting you to reach out, turn it, and step through into the quiet bay beyond. Once we step through into that quiet, we become aware of the moon's subtle rhythmic nod. This is libration. We often say the moon shows us only one face, but that is not entirely true. The moon is not a soldier standing at rigid attention. It is a dancer that sways. Because its orbit is elliptical, it speeds up and slows down, while its rotation remains constant. This causes it to wobble. It nods up and down. It shakes its head left and right. Over the course of a month, it allows us to peek around its edges, revealing a sliver of the dark side here, a glimpse of the North Pole there. In total, we can see 59% of the surface. It is a rocking motion. It is the yes and the no combined into a gentle circular sway. Close your eyes and feel this motion. It is the feeling of a boat on a calm sea, or a cradle being rocked by an invisible hand. You're tilting slightly to the east, then rocking back to the west, tilting up and tilting down. It is a slow, cosmic lullaby of motion. You're not fixed, you're librating. You're oscillating around a centre of gravity, safe, held, but free to move in a gentle rhythmic sway that lulls the consciousness into a trance. Finally, we drift to the very edge of the moon's influence, to the invisible sphere that defines its dominion. This is the Hill sphere. Every moon and every planet has a bubble of space around it where its gravity is the dominant force, stronger than the pull of the sun or the parent planet. Inside this bubble, you belong to the moon. Outside of it, you belong to the planet. For our moon, this sphere extends roughly 60,000 kilometers out. It is a sanctuary of gravity. When a spacecraft crosses into the Hill sphere, the mathematics change. The calculations shift. The sun becomes secondary. The Earth becomes secondary. The moon becomes the master. Visualize this invisible bubble surrounding the silver orb. It is a sphere of quiet authority. Imagine yourself crossing that threshold. You're entering the moon's private room. The noise of the solar system drops away. The pull of the Earth's responsibilities fades. You are now within the hill sphere of sleep. The only gravity that matters here is rest. The only force acting upon you is the gentle pull of the dream. You're safe inside the bubble. The rest of the universe can wait outside. We linger in the silent, invisible clearings of the propeller moons, feeling the absence of dust, the pure emptiness of the gap. From this place of negative space, we allow our vision to adjust to the subtle, ghostly shifting of the light on the great B-ring of Saturn. As you float above the vast, golden expanse of Saturn's B-ring, you might witness a phenomenon that looks like a trick of the eye, a fleeting hallucination in the ring plane. These are the spokes. They are not solid objects, they are shadows, dark, wedge-shaped fingers that stretch radially across the rings, appearing and disappearing in a matter of minutes. Imagine breathing onto a cold window pane. The fog appears, lingers for a moment, and then evaporates. That is the nature of a spoke. They are composed of microscopic dust particles lifted away from the main ring plane by electrostatic forces. The massive magnetic field of Saturn charges the dust, levitating it above the larger boulders, casting long shadows on the ice below. It is a suspension of gravity. It is the universe holding its breath. Watch as a dark wedge forms silently, turning with the rings like the spoke of a great cosmic wheel, and then, just as softly, dissolves back into the brilliance of the ice. It teaches us about the impermanence of our own thoughts. Dark or heavy thoughts may rise up, casting a shadow over the mind, but they are just electrostatic dust. They have no weight. They are transient. Watch them form, acknowledge their shape, and then watch them dissolve, leaving the golden ring of your consciousness bright and unbroken. Drifting outward from the rings, we come to rest above the cratered icy plains of Rhea, Saturn's second largest moon. At first glance, Rhea appears to be just another frozen grey world, scarred by the history of impacts. But Rhea holds a secret that is intimately familiar to us. It breathes. Spacecraft have detected a very tenuous atmosphere of oxygen and carbon dioxide clinging to its surface. It is not air you could breathe, for it is 1 trillion times thinner than Earth's, but it is there. It is created by the magnetosphere of Saturn bombarding the water ice on the surface, liberating oxygen molecules that float briefly before drifting away. Visualize this thin, ghostly veil of breath wrapping around the moon. Even in the vacuum, there is the essence of life. There is respiration. As you float above the grey craters, imagine the moon taking a very slow, shallow breath. Inhale the silence, exhale the oxygen. It is a reminder that the universe is not entirely suffocating. There are pockets of breath, thin layers of familiarity clinging to the ice, waiting to be found. Match your own breathing to this subtle atmosphere, delicate, rare, and precious. We push further out, leaving the orderly plane of the main moons to find the dark sheep of the family. We encounter Phoebe. Unlike the other icy bright moons of Saturn that formed in place, Phoebe is a captured object, likely a centaur from the deep Kuiper belt. It is dark, cratered, and moves in a retrograde orbit, spinning backwards against the grain of the system. But Phoebe is not just a lonely wanderer, it is a creator. It is the source of the largest, most invisible structure in the solar system, the Phoebe ring. As micrometeoroids hit Phoebe's dark surface, they kick up dust that spreads out into a colossal donut of debris, millions of kilometers wide. This ring is dark, tenuous, and immense. If you could see it from Earth, it would be the width of 2 full moons. Phoebe sits in the center of this dark halo, quietly generating its own environment. It teaches us the power of the shadow. You can be dark, you can be different, you can move backwards, and you can still build something massive and encompassing. Wrap yourself in the dark dust of the Phoebe ring. It is a layer of protection, a vast buffer zone that keeps the rest of the universe at a comfortable distance. We leave the golden realm of Saturn now, propelled by the thought of this dark dust, and drift inward toward the giant Jupiter. We are looking for a moon that is not white or grey, but the colour of deep, dried blood. We find Amalthea. This is the reddest object in the solar system. It orbits incredibly close to Jupiter, deep within the dangerous radiation belts, closer even than Io. Amalthea is a martyr of the system. It is being sandblasted by micrometeoroids and baked by the radiation. The red colour likely comes from sulphur escaping from Io's volcanoes, painting Amalthea in a thick coat of rust. But in this harshness, there is a strange beauty. Amalthea is glowing with heat. It actually radiates more heat than it receives from the sun, warmed by the electrical currents induced by Jupiter's magnetic field. It is a warm ember in the cold dark. Imagine holding a smooth red stone in your hand that is warm to the touch. That is Amalthea. It is shaped like a chaotic potato, pointing its long axis perpetually toward Jupiter. It is a reminder that you can exist in a high-energy environment, close to the source of power, and absorb that energy, turning it into your own internal warmth. Feel that heat radiating from your own centre, a deep, red warmth that permeates your muscles, relaxing them from the inside out. Far, far away from the intense heat of Amalthea, in the distant suburbs of the Jovian system, we find the Calm Group. These are the rebels of Jupiter, a cluster of irregular moons, Calm, Taygete, Euclid and others, that orbit in retrograde. They move in the opposite direction to the planet's spin and the inner moons. This tells us they were not born here, they were captured. They are a family of strangers who found a home together. They orbit at such a distance, over 23 million kilometres out, that Jupiter is just a small, bright disk in their sky. The Sun is small too. The isolation here is profound. They move in a tangled, chaotic knot of orbits, tilting and swaying. Yet, they do not collide. They have found a stability in their chaos. Visualize this distant dance. It is like a flock of birds circling a distant tower, weaving in and out, independent yet bound by a common centre. It is a feeling of loose attachment. You do not need to be tightly wound. You do not need to be in perfect sync with the world. You can be out on the fringe, moving in your own direction, retrograde and free, held only by the faintest, most gentle thread of gravity. We release the gas giants entirely now, letting their gravity fade behind us and drift back to the familiar cratered grey of our own moon. We are looking for the ghosts of ancient rivers. We find the sinuous rills. From orbit, they look like winding riverbeds, meandering curves that snake across the dark lava plains. The most famous is Schroeter's Valley, a grand canyon that twists like a serpent. But no water ever flowed here. These are the collapsed remains of giant lava tubes. Billions of years ago, rivers of molten rock flowed here, crusted over at the top and then drained away, leaving hollow tunnels that eventually caved in. What remains is a channel of memory. It is the path of least resistance, immortalized in stone. Trace the curve of Schroeter's Valley with your mind. It bends and turns, wide and deep, a canyon of shadow. It represents the flow of energy that has passed. The fire is gone, the liquid is gone. All that is left is the peaceful, empty channel. Allow your mind to become like a rill. Let the thoughts drain away. Let the hot, rushing energy of the day flow out, leaving behind a cool, empty channel, a quiet groove in the landscape of your mind where the shadows can rest. Zooming in closer to these dark plains, we shift our perspective from the miles-wide canyons to the microscopic. If you were to sift through the grey dust of the lunar regolith, specifically near the Taurus Littrow Valley, you might find something that gleams like a jewel. These are the orange glass spherules. They're tiny beads of volcanic glass, no bigger than a grain of salt. They were created 3.5 billion years ago during a fire fountain eruption, where lava was sprayed high into the vacuum. The droplets froze instantly in the cold of space, turning into perfect microscopic spheres of orange and black glass before raining back down. They have been buried there ever since, waiting. It is a hidden treasure in the dust. The moon is not just grey, it has pockets of colour, pockets of jewels. Visualize running your hand through the grey dust and finding it sparkling with millions of tiny orange beads. It is a texture of hidden richness. It reminds us that even in the driest, dustiest, most monotone moments of life, there are tiny preserved spheres of colour and beauty waiting to be found. Let your mind focus on a single tiny bead of orange glass, perfect and smooth, resting in the silence of the dust. We lift our eyes from the ground to the horizon to witness one of the most breathtaking lighting effects in the solar system, the golden handle. This phenomenon occurs roughly 2 days after the first quarter moon. The sun rises over the Bay of Rainbows, Sinus Iridum. The bay is surrounded by the Jura Mountains, a high, curved range of peaks. As the sun rises, the floor of the bay is still in deep shadow, buried in the night. But the mountain peaks are high enough to catch the first rays of the dawn. They light up in a brilliant curved arc of gold, hang suspended in the darkness, seemingly detached from the rest of the moon. It looks like a handle of light floating in the void. It is a promise of the morning that is yet to come. It is the light touching the highest points first. Visualize that arc, a scimitar of glowing light against the velvet black. It is a visual anchor. Grab onto the golden handle, let it lift you out of the shadows, or perhaps see it as a handle to a door that opens into the deepest, most restful sleep. The handle is glowing, inviting you to reach out, turn it, and step through into the quiet bay beyond. Once we step through into that quiet, we become aware of the moon's subtle rhythmic nod. This is libration. We often say the moon shows us only one face, but that is not entirely true. The moon is not a soldier standing at rigid attention. It is a dancer that sways. Because its orbit is elliptical, it speeds up and slows down, while its rotation remains constant. This causes it to wobble. It nods up and down. It shakes its head left and right. Over the course of a month, it allows us to peek around its edges, revealing a sliver of the dark side here, a glimpse of the North Pole there. In total, we can see 59% of the surface. It is a rocking motion. It is the yes and the no combined into a gentle circular sway. Close your eyes and feel this motion. It is the feeling of a boat on a calm sea, or a cradle being rocked by an invisible hand. You are tilting slightly to the east, then rocking back to the west, tilting up and tilting down. It is a slow, cosmic lullaby of motion. You're not fixed, you're liberating. You're oscillating around a centre of gravity, safe, held, but free to move in a gentle rhythmic sway that lulls the consciousness into a trance. Finally, we drift to the very edge of the moon's influence, to the invisible sphere that defines its dominion. This is the Hill sphere. Every moon and every planet has a bubble of space around it where its gravity is the dominant force, stronger than the pull of the sun or the parent planet. Inside this bubble, you belong to the moon. Outside of it, you belong to the planet. For our moon, this sphere extends roughly 60,000 kilometers out. It is a sanctuary of gravity. When a spacecraft crosses into the Hill sphere, the mathematics change. The calculations shift. The sun becomes secondary. The Earth becomes secondary. The moon becomes the master. Visualize this invisible bubble surrounding the silver orb. It is a sphere of quiet authority. Imagine yourself crossing that threshold. You're entering the moon's private room. The noise of the solar system drops away. The pull of the Earth's responsibilities fades. You are now within the Hill sphere of sleep. The only gravity that matters here is rest. The only force acting upon you is the gentle pull of the dream. You're safe inside the bubble. The rest of the universe can wait outside. We rest for a moment within the invisible, protective bubble of the Hill sphere, feeling the quiet authority of the moon's gravity holding us close, shielding us from the deeper pull of the sun. Yet, even in this safe embrace, there is a very slow, very gentle letting go occurring. This is the phenomenon of lunar recession. We tend to think of the moon as a permanent fixture, pinned to the sky, but in reality, it is performing a long, slow-motion departure. Every year, the moon drifts exactly 3.8 centimeters away from the Earth, roughly the same speed that your fingernails grow. It is stealing a little bit of Earth's rotational energy, using it to push itself into a wider, higher orbit. Visualize this not as an abandonment, but as an expansion. It is a slow, spiraling stretch into the void. The tether is not breaking, it is lengthening. There is a profound relaxation in this movement. It suggests that relationships, even celestial ones, need space to breathe. Imagine a deep exhale that lasts for billions of years, the breath pushing the moon gently outward, creating more room, more silence, more perspective. You too can allow the things you hold tight to drift a little. You don't have to grip them. You can let them recede, inch by inch, knowing that the gravity remains, but the tension is releasing, stretching out into a comfortable, spacious drift. As we allow our awareness to expand with the receding moon, we cast our minds back to the grand clockwork of the Jovian system to witness the ultimate example of cosmic rhythm. This is the Laplace resonance. The three inner Galilean moons, Io, Europa and Ganymede, are locked in a precise gravitational waltz that has been playing for aeons. For every one orbit that massive Ganymede completes, the ice world Europa completes exactly 2, and the fiery Io completes exactly 4. It is a ratio of 1 to 2 to 4. Listen to the beat of this system. It is a metronome in the dark. Tick, 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 tick. Every time they align, they give each other a small gravitational tug, keeping the rhythm perfect, keeping the orbits slightly elliptical, pumping heat into their interiors. It is a self-correcting harmony. It reminds us that the universe is not chaotic, it is musical. There is a beat to the solar system, a low-frequency hum of mathematical perfection. Let your own heartbeat sync with this resonance. One slow, heavy beat of Ganymede, 2 lighter beats of Europa, 4 quick, energetic beats of Io, and then silence, and then it repeats. Feel the comfort of a system that knows exactly where it is going, a system that never misses a step, rocking you in a cradle of predictable harmonic motion. Connecting the fiery dancer, Io, to its parent planet. Jupiter is something invisible, powerful, and electrifying. This is the Io flux tube. It is an invisible current of electric charge, a river of 5 million amps flowing through the vacuum of space. Because Io is spewing out tons of volcanic gas every second, and because it is moving through Jupiter's massive magnetic field, it acts like an electrical generator. A physical connection of plasma connects the poles of Jupiter directly to the atmosphere of Io. Visualize this as a golden thread of energy, a glowing umbilical cord of light that tethers the moon to the planet. You cannot see it with the naked eye, but in the ultraviolet spectrum it is a blazing footprint on the planet's atmosphere. It is a reminder that we are all connected by invisible currents. Even in the vacuum, even across the distance, there is a flow. Imagine yourself plugged into a source of infinite steady energy. It is not a shock. It is a hum, a low, steady vibration of vitality that flows from the universe into you, travelling along your own personal flux tube, charging your batteries while you sleep, ensuring that you wake up replenished and full of light. Drifting outward from the high-energy orbit of Io, we splash down softly into the surreal, broken landscape of Europa. We have spoken of its smooth ice, but there are regions here known as chaos terrain, specifically Connemara chaos. Here, the ice crust has shattered, broken into polygonal rafts that have tilted and rotated before refreezing in a soup of slushy water. It looks exactly like a giant jigsaw puzzle that someone shook and left unsettled. The blocks of ice are massive, miles wide, floating in a matrix of darker, rougher material. There is a strange peace in this brokenness. It suggests that things do not need to be seamless to be solid. The ice broke, it drifted, and it froze again in a new configuration. It is a landscape of floating. Visualize yourself standing on one of these great rafts of ice, drifting slowly in the semi-frozen slush. You are supported. You're disconnected from the mainland, free to rotate, free to drift, locked safely in the new pattern of the ice. The chaos is not active, it is frozen. It is a snapshot of movement held still. Let your thoughts break apart like the ice rafts of Connemara, drifting away from each other, floating separately and peacefully in the cold, dark ocean of your mind. Leaving the bright ice of Jupiter, we fly deep into the blue twilight of Neptune to find a moon that defies the laws of beauty. This is Proteus. It is a dark, soot-coloured world, and it holds a special title. It is the largest object in the solar system that is not round. Proteus is a polyhedron, a boxy, faceted shape with flat sides and sharp corners. It is right on the limit. If it were just a little bit bigger, its gravity would have pulled it into a sphere. But it stayed small enough to keep its edges. It is a refusal to conform. It hides in the darkness, reflecting almost no light, a stealth moon shaped like a multifaceted gem of coal. Imagine drifting around this irregular world. It has no smooth horizon. It has angles. It is a testament to the fact that you do not need to be polished or perfect to belong. You can be rough-hewn. You can have edges. You can be a shape that no one expected. In the dark azure sky of Neptune, Proteus tumbles silently, a dark, heavy anchor that accepts its own clumsiness with total grace. Embrace your own rough edges tonight. You do not need to smooth yourself out for the sake of the world. You can be boxy and dark and silent, and still orbit the king of the sea. We propel ourselves further out to the very limits of Neptune's kingdom to find a pair of lovers separated by the greatest distance in the solar system. These are the moons Sao and Neso. They are tiny, irregular rocks, but their orbits are staggering. Neso orbits Neptune at a distance of 48 million kilometers. It is so far away that it takes 26 Earth years to complete a single lap around the planet. If you were on Neso, Neptune would look like just a bright star, barely distinguishable from the others, yet gravity holds it. Sao and Neso are locked in a Kozai resonance, a delicate gravitational dance where they trade eccentricity for inclination, bowing to each other across the void. They are the definition of a long-distance relationship. They remind us of the power of a weak but persistent bond. You do not need to be close to be held. You can drift out to the very edge of what is possible, into the deep freeze of the outer dark, and the gravity of home will still keep you in the family. Feel the patience of Neso. 26 years for one circle. There is no rush. There is no deadline. Just a slow, majestic, lonely arc through the silence that takes a generation to complete. We circle back to the tilted system of Uranus to gaze into the darkest mirror of all. We find Umbriel. This moon is the darkest of the Uranian satellites, reflecting only half as much light as its sisters. It is covered in a material as dark as asphalt, absorbing the weak sunlight, keeping its secrets. The surface is old and heavily cratered, a record of ancient violence. But on the very top of this dark world, near the equator, there is a single, blindingly bright ring. This is the crater Wunda. Whatever impacted there punched through the dark crust and exposed a layer of brilliant white ice underneath. It looks like a glowing eye in the dark, or a ring of light floating in a void. It is a startling contrast. The darkness of Umbriel is not empty. It is a velvet backdrop for this single point of light. It teaches us about focus. When everything else is dark, the light becomes more precious, more defined. Visualize that ring of white ice on the dark floor of the moon. It is a portal, a circle of clarity. Focus your mind on that single bright ring. Let the rest of the world fade into the asphalt darkness of Umbriel. There is only the ring, cool, white, and perfectly still. Drifting inward to the realm of Saturn, we observe a landscape that looks like a painting of a storm, but is actually a sculpture of ice. These are the wisps of Dione. For centuries, astronomers looked at Dione and saw bright erratic streaks crisscrossing its trailing hemisphere. They thought it was snow, or perhaps volcanic ash. But when the Cassini spacecraft flew close, it revealed the truth. The wisps are actually massive, sheer cliffs made of bright ice. They are tectonic fractures where the moon's crust has cracked and pulled apart, creating canyons with walls hundreds of meters high. Because the ice is fresh, it shines brightly against the darker terrain. Visualize gliding along the face of one of these cliffs. It is a vertical wall of diamond-hard ice, gleaming in the Saturnian sunlight. It is a scar that has become a feature. The cracking of the moon created a new facade, a new way to catch the light. It reminds us that our own fractures, the places where we have been pulled apart by stress, can become the brightest parts of us. They are the wisps that others see, the shining streaks of resilience. Run your hand down the cold, smooth face of the ice cliff, feeling the solidity of the fracture, the strength of the broken ground. Staying in the Saturnian system, we drift to Rhea to consider a ghost story of physics. This is the concept of Rhea's rings. While we know Saturn has rings, instruments on spacecraft have hinted that the moon Rhea might have a ring system of its own, a halo within a halo. It is the only moon where we have found evidence of this, a broad, tenuous disk of debris spinning around the moon's equator. Although we have not yet snapped a picture of it, the data suggests it is there, a silent, invisible hula hoop of dust. Imagine the elegance of this nesting doll structure. A sun, orbited by a planet with rings, orbited by a moon with rings. It is layers of protection, layers of decoration. Imagine yourself as Rhea. You're not just a rock, you're a centre of gravity. You have your own atmosphere, however thin. You have your own rings, however faint. You're a complete system unto yourself. You do not need to rely on the planet to define you. You carry your own jewellery, your own orbit of dust, spinning silently around your waist in the dark, a private celebration of gravity that no one else needs to see to believe. Finally, we return to the familiar ground of our own moon to seek the ultimate shelter. We descend into the Mare Tranquillitatis pit. From above, it looks like a black hole in the grey rock, a circular skylight leading into the abyss. This is an opening to a lava tube, a massive underground tunnel that has remained intact for billions of years. While the surface of the moon swings from boiling hot to freezing cold, down in that hole, inside the cave, the temperature is a constant, comfortable 17 degrees Celsius, about 63 degrees Fahrenheit. It is the Goldilocks zone of the moon. It is a natural, ready-made habitat shielded from radiation, shielded from meteorites, shielded from the temperature swings. Visualize lowering yourself down through the skylight, rappelling into the darkness. As you descend, the harsh sunlight disappears. The silence deepens. You touch down on the floor of a vast cylindrical cavern, wide enough to house a city. It is safe here. It is the womb of the moon. It is the most protected place in the inner solar system. Curl up on the floor of this ancient lava tube. The rock walls are thick and protective. The air, if there were air, would be still. You're deep underground, in a sanctuary that has not changed since the dinosaurs walked the earth. There is nothing to fear here, just the eternal, stable, temperate dark. We remain deep within the protective silence of the lunar lava tube, grounded by the ancient basalt, before we slowly begin our ascent, climbing back up through the skylight, emerging once more onto the silent grey surface of the Sea of Tranquility. As we stand upon the lunar regolith, looking back at the blue marble of Earth, we encounter a testament to human connection, known as the retroreflector. Sitting quietly in the dust, untouched since it was placed there by astronaut hands decades ago, is a small panel studded with 100 mirrors. These are not ordinary mirrors. They are corner cube prisms designed to reflect light back exactly to its source. Every day, scientists on Earth aim a powerful laser at this tiny target. Imagine that beam of emerald green light pulsing from an observatory in the desert, shooting up through the atmosphere, travelling 384,000 kilometres through the silence of space, spreading out as it goes. It strikes the panel on the moon, and then it bounces. A tiny ghostly fraction of that light travels all the way back, landing in the telescope's receiver exactly 2.5 seconds later. This is the ping of the cosmos. It is a heartbeat of light. Pulse, return, pulse, return. It measures the distance to the moon with the precision of a single millimetre. There is a profound comfort in this reliable return. It is a conversation of pure light. It tells us that the connection is still there, that the moon is exactly where it should be. Visualize that green laser beam as a thread of light, sewing the Earth and moon together, a luminous stitch in the fabric of the night that holds you securely to your own centre of gravity. As the sun begins to rise higher over the lunar plane, warming the surface, a microscopic dance begins beneath our feet. This is the Great Water Migration. We used to think the moon was bone dry, but we now know that individual water molecules cling to the grains of lunar soil. When the sun hits them, they become energized. They vibrate. They detach. They hop. Visualize a single molecule of water, an invisible speck of hydration, waking up from its frozen slumber. It leaps up into the vacuum, arching in a ballistic trajectory seeking cooler ground. It is a game of cosmic hopscotch. The water migrates away from the heat, hopping further and further toward the poles, searching for the eternal shadows where it can freeze and rest. It is a thermal wind of water, a silent, invisible tide flowing across the dry rocks. It reminds us that even in the most barren landscapes, there is movement. There is a seeking for shelter. Just like those molecules, your thoughts are migrating now. They are lifting off from the hot, bright centre of your active mind and hopping gently, arc by arc, toward the cool, shadowed poles of your consciousness, where they can settle into the ice of deep sleep. We pull our focus back from the surface, expanding our view to the gravitational balance points of the Earth-Moon system to find the ghosts that haunt us. These are the Kordylewski clouds. In the complex gravity map between the Earth and the Moon, there are two stable pockets called Lagrange points 4 and 5. These are the parking lots of space. Here, the gravity of the Earth and the Moon cancel each other out perfectly, and in these quiet harbours, vast, tenuous clouds of cosmic dust have gathered. They are the ghost moons of Earth. They are not solid rock. They are mists of ancient debris, spanning an area as wide as 15 Earths. They are so faint that they are almost impossible to see, glowing with a brightness barely above the background noise of the universe. But they are there, two giant silent companions made of nothing but dust and gravity, orbiting us faithfully. They are the gathered memories of the solar system held in suspension. It is a comforting thought. That emptiness is rarely empty. It is often filled with soft, invisible matter, waiting in the stable points. Allow yourself to drift into one of these clouds. You are weightless, surrounded by the finest mist of stardust, held in the perfect equilibrium between the worlds, floating in a cloud of pure potential. We leave the orbit of Earth and drift outward again to the red planet, Mars, to pay closer attention to its second, smaller child. We have spoken of the jagged, hurried Phobos, but now we float alongside Deimos. Deimos is the swift moon, but its movement feels incredibly lazy and smooth. It orbits much further out than its brother, drifting in the quiet upper atmosphere of the Martian system. The most striking thing about Deimos is its skin. Unlike Phobos, which looks sharp and battered, Deimos looks soft. It is covered in a remarkably thick blanket of regolith, dust and debris that has filled in all the craters, smoothing over the rough edges, making the moon look like a worn, rounded river stone or a lump of clay. It looks blurred. It is a world where the details have been erased by the slow accumulation of time. If you were to step onto Deimos, you would sink deep into this powdery dust. It absorbs sound. It absorbs impact. It creates a muffled world, As it slowly spirals away from Mars, destined to one day leave the planet entirely, it carries this blanket of silence with it. Feel the smoothness of Deimos. Let the dust of sleep fill in the sharp craters of your day, smoothing out the worries until your mind is as round, soft and featureless as this distant drifting moon. We accelerate now, slingshotting past the asteroid belt to the king of planets, Jupiter, to ride with the fastest runners in the system. We find the small inner moon Adrastea. This tiny world lives on the edge of danger. It orbits inside Jupiter's main ring, skimming the very top of the planet's atmosphere. It moves with breathtaking speed, completing a full orbit in just 7 hours. Because Jupiter takes 10 hours to spin, Adrastea is actually outrunning the planet. If you floated in the clouds of Jupiter, you would see Adrastea rise in the west and race across the sky to set in the east. It is a sprinter. But despite this speed, there is a stillness to its purpose. Adrastea is a shepherd of the rings, and more importantly, it is a cleaner. It sweeps up the dust. It keeps its lane clear. It focuses on the path ahead with absolute tunnel vision. Imagine that sense of speed turning into a hum. When you move that fast, the world blurs into a stream of colour. The orange and white bands of Jupiter become a smooth wall of light. Adrastea teaches us the trance of velocity. You're moving so fast that you're perfectly still. You're locked in the groove, racing the rotation of the world, skimming the surface of the dream without ever falling in. From the speed of the inner moons, we drift outward to a position where we can look back at the face of Jupiter and witness a moment of perfect geometry. This is the shadow transit. As the large Galilean moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, Callisto, pass between the sun and the planet, they cast their shadows onto the swirling cloud tops below. Through a telescope, these shadows appear as ink-black dots, perfectly circular, moving slowly across the bands of orange and white storms. It is a hole in the light. This is the umbra, the darkest part of the shadow. Inside that black circle, looking up from the clouds, the sun is completely eclipsed. The day has turned to night, but looking from above, it is a wandering spot of silence. Amidst the chaotic, violent storms of Jupiter, where winds scream at hundreds of miles per hour, this shadow glides with absolute serenity. It touches the storm, but it is not of the storm. It is a projection of peace. Visualize that black disk sliding over the turbulence of your own mind. Wherever the shadow touches, the storm quiets. The noise is eclipsed. The wind dies down. Watch the black circle drift slowly from left to right, smoothing the clouds, bringing a moment of cool, dark eclipse to the chaotic atmosphere. We move on to Saturn, the jewel of the solar system, to find a moon that is not a shepherd, but a hidden gem encased in light. This is Zion. It is the smallest known moon of Saturn, a tiny speck of rock barely half a kilometre wide. But its home is magnificent. Gaian lives inside the G-ring, a faint bright arc of ice dust. Unlike the other rings, the G-ring is an incomplete arc, a smile of light in the darkness, and Gaian is the seed around which this arc forms. The moon releases dust from its surface, feeding the ring, wrapping itself in a cocoon of its own making. It is a pearl inside an oyster of light. Visualize this tiny rock, floating in the center of a glowing, translucent tunnel of ice crystals. It is completely surrounded by a shimmering haze. It is safe. It is hidden. It is the nucleus of the glow. Feel yourself as Gaian. You're small and still, but you're surrounded by a bright, protective aura of comfort. The light curves around you, holding you in the center of the arc, suspending you in a hammock of glittering dust. Staying in the Saturnian system, we drift to the strange and battered moon Hyperion to touch the texture of the sponge. But then we look past it to a tiny wandering companion of Dione called Polydeuces. This is a Trojan moon, but unlike the steady, disciplined Trojans we met before, Polydeuces is a nervous wanderer. It occupies the trailing Lagrange point behind Dione, but it does not sit still. It oscillates. It drifts forward and backward, wandering as far as 30 degrees from its sweet spot. It is like a tadpole swimming in a fishbowl, darting back and forth but never leaving the safety of the bowl. This movement is called a tadpole orbit. It creates a loop shape relative to Dione. There is a playful energy here. It reminds us that even when we are anchored, we are allowed to sway. We are allowed to drift to the edge of our comfort zone and then swing back. The gravity will always catch us. Visualize Polydeuces tracing its long looping path in the dark, drifting away, slowing down, turning around, drifting back. It is a pendulum swing of millions of kilometers. Swing out, swing in, swing out, swing in. The rhythm is long and slow, a cosmic rocking chair that keeps you safe within the gravity well. We voyage outward to the cold, sideways world of Uranus, to the very edge of its ring system, to find the weaver of the blue veil. This is Mab. Mab is a tiny, overlooked moon, but it is responsible for creating the Mu ring. This ring is special. It is blue. Most rings in the solar system are red or grey, made of dust and rock. But the Mu ring is made of the finest, tiniest particles of water ice, so small that they scatter blue light, just like the sky on Earth. Mab orbits inside this ethereal blue fog. It strikes the meteoroids, releases the fresh water ice, and paints a circle of azure around the planet. Imagine floating in a ring of blue mist. It is cool, calming, and surreal. The light here is soft and aquatic. Mab is the silent artist, spinning a thread of blue silk in the darkness. Wrap yourself in this blue ring. Let the colour seep into your vision. It is the colour of deep twilight, the colour of the ocean floor, the colour of the deepest, most dreamless sleep. You're floating in the Mu ring, suspended in a cloud of blue ice, perfectly cool and perfectly at rest. Finally, we arrive at the edge of the classical map to the Pluto system to find the light in the underworld. We drift toward Hydra. While Charon is dark and moody, and Pluto is varied and complex, Hydra is shockingly clean. It is covered in nearly pristine water ice. In the dim sunlight of the Kuiper Belt, where the sun is just a star, Hydra glides like a ghost. It is not spherical. It is elongated, shaped a bit like a jellyfish or a floating island. Because it orbits a double-planet system, Pluto and Charon, its rotation is chaotic. It tumbles. But the overwhelming sensation of Hydra is its brightness. It reflects the starlight with a cold, hard clarity. It is a beacon at the edge of the unknown. It suggests that even in the deepest, farthest corners of the night there is purity. There is clear, clean ice. There is a light that does not dim. Visualize touching the surface of Hydra. It is cold, smooth, and hard. It feels refreshing. It is a cold compress for the mind. It cools the thoughts, freezes the worries, and leaves you with nothing but the sensation of clean, white ice drifting silently through the eternal black. We leave the pristine, crystalline silence of Hydra, and with it, we leave the outer edges of the map entirely. We let the cold, distant stars of the Kuiper Belt fade into the background as we drift, for the final time back toward the warmth of our own inner sanctum. We return to the relationship that started it all, to the Earth and its silver companion, to whisper the final, most profound secret of the night. This is the concept of the final embrace, or mutual tidal locking. We know that the moon currently keeps one face turned toward us, locked in a gaze of eternal devotion, but the Earth is still spinning, turning away and turning back, restless and active. However, the moon is patient. With every tide that rises and falls, with every wave that crashes on the shore, the moon is applying a gentle break to our planet. The friction of the water against the ocean floor is stealing the Earth's energy, millisecond by millisecond. The days are getting longer, the spin is getting slower. Far in the deep, deep future, billions of years from now, the Earth will finally succumb to this gentle persuasion. It will slow down until its rotation matches the orbit of the moon exactly. In that distant time, the Earth will stop spinning relative to its companion. We will be locked together, face to face, eye to eye, in a frozen dance of perfect equilibrium. Imagine standing on the surface of that future Earth. The moon will not rise or set. It will simply hang there, a permanent, majestic fixture in the sky, watching over half the world forever, while the other half looks out into the deep, star-studded void. It is the ultimate stillness. The restlessness of the relationship will have finally settled into a state of absolute, unwavering peace. It is the destiny of all great loves in the cosmos to eventually stop spinning and simply be together. The chasing is over. The cycles of rising and setting are over. There is only the presence. Feel the profound relaxation of this future. It is a promise that eventually all motion settles, all spinning stops, all frantic energy is slowly, gently absorbed by the tides of time until only the stillness remains. You're moving toward that stillness now. Your own internal rotation is slowing down. The brakes of the night are applying their gentle pressure. You're ceasing to turn. You're ceasing to spin. You're locking into a position of comfort, facing the deep, quiet gravity of sleep, never to turn away again until the morning comes. You have reached the point of mutual locking. You and the night are one. And now, the voyage is complete. We have drifted from the dusty grey plains of our nearest neighbour to the fiery, sulphurous vents of Io. We have skated across the cracked ice of Europa and floated in the thick orange haze of Titan. We have tumbled with the chaotic moons of Pluto and slept in the blue rings of Uranus. We have seen volcanoes of ice and rivers of dust. We have witnessed the violence of impacts and the silence of the shadows. But all these worlds, all these 101 wonders, are no longer out there in the cold distance. They have been gathered. They have been brought inside. They are drifting now within the vast, quiet inner space of your own mind. You have become the galaxy. The moons are orbiting you. They are heavy, silent stones of comfort, circling the centre of your rest. Feel their gravity weighing you down. The distance is closing. The light is fading. The stars are dimming one by one, like candles being snuffed out in a great hall. There is nothing left to see. There is nothing left to learn. The telescope is capped. The observatory is dark. The data stream has turned into a slow, rhythmic hum. Feel the bed rising up to hold you, solid as rock, soft as regolith. The atmosphere around you is thick and safe. The silence is deep and ancient. You're drifting in the dark, weightless and free, caught in the gentle, inescapable pull of the deepest sleep. Let go of the orbit. Let go of the trajectory. Let go of the light. You are safe. You are held. You are home. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.